Doorbell cameras are supposed to make people feel safer. A little glowing ring by the door, quietly watching, recording every knock and delivery. For many homes, it's the first line of defense. But sometimes, those cameras don't bring peace of mind. They capture the moment when a normal day slips into something much darker. In this clip, the footage begins with something petty and gross, rather than truly threatening. A man has walked up to the side of a house and relieved himself on the property. It's disrespectful, disgusting, but not the kind of thing you'd normally think could turn deadly. The homeowner, frustrated and angry, decides he's not just going to let it slide. He opens the front door and steps outside to confront the stranger.
Serious? This right here? No? You fucking serious? Stop our goddamn property.
At first, it looks like the usual tense argument you might expect in a situation like that. Voices raised, just out of frame. The camera keeps rolling, pointed at the empty doorway. You can hear the strain in their tones, the edge of irritation turning into something sharper. Then the homeowner's partner steps outside too, drawn by the noise, wanting to know why there's a stranger on their property and why tempers are rising in the middle of what should have been a quiet moment. And then, without warning, everything snaps. The man and woman suddenly burst back into the frame, sprinting toward the door with a kind of panicked energy you don't see unless someone genuinely thinks they're about to be hurt. They're not walking, they're running for their lives. Right behind them, the intruder charges into view, arm extended, a knife clutched in his hand. He closes a distance in seconds, reaching the threshold just as they slam the door shut in his face. The door shakes under the impact as he hits it, pressing his weight forward for a moment, testing the barrier, as if deciding whether to try and force his way inside. The frame jarring slightly as the man outside pushes, then finally steps back. After that, he turns and walks away, disappearing out of sight as the adrenaline still hums in the air. What started as a disgusting act of vandalism, a cowardly decision to urinate on someone's wall, escalated in seconds into a full-on attempted attack. For the couple inside, their decision to shut the door at that exact moment may have been the only thing that kept a confrontation from turning into a stabbing at their own front entrance. That's the unsettling thing about clips like this. They don't show masked intruders kicking in doors at 3 a.m. They show how quickly danger can emerge from something small, stupid, and unexpected. When a stranger standing just outside your home suddenly decides to step over the line. TikTok user Riddle360 shared a video that turned a fun Halloween memory into something people still debate. The recording starts like hundreds of others at night, music playing, decorations glowing, friends laughing in costume. It's the one evening of the year where masks, fake blood, and strangers on the street don't immediately raise alarms. But in this house, at this party, someone walked in who didn't belong there. In the video, a man appears at the edge of the celebration. His clothes are splattered with what looks like blood. His face is completely hidden behind a disturbing mask, something twisted, unsettling. The kind of thing you'd cross a street to avoid if you saw it after midnight. No one recognizes him. No one remembers inviting him. Yet he doesn't speak. He doesn't knock. He just sits down among them like he owns the room. At first, some of the partygoers assume it's a friend playing a prank or maybe someone's +1 trying too hard to be edgy. But as the minutes drag on, his silence stops being funny. He doesn't dance, he doesn't joke, he just stares through that mask, still and watchful, while everyone else tries to pretend it isn't creeping them out.
Our Halloween.
Without warning, he slowly reaches up and removes the mask. Normally, you'd expect a face that breaks the tension, a laugh, a familiar smile. Instead, what's underneath makes things worse. His features look wrong, stretched, rigid, and locked in an expression that feels off, like his skin doesn't quite fit his skull. People later compared his face to Jeff the Killer, pale, unnatural, and frozen in a kind of permanent, unsettling grin doesn't match the room around him. He never introduces himself. He never explains why he's there. According to the caption on the video, he eventually stands up, walks out of the house without a word, and disappears into the night. That should have been the end of it, but Riddle360 added one detail that sends the whole thing from unnerving to genuinely chilling. Later on the walk home, they looked across the street and swore they saw the same man standing in the shadows. close, staring, not moving, not approaching, just watching. No one followed him. No one got a license plate or a clear name. All that remains is the clip and the uneasy feeling that he knew exactly what he was doing. So what did everyone actually witness that night? Maybe it was just a cruel prank, someone hiding behind anonymity in a mask to push a room full of strangers past their comfort zone. Or maybe it was a person trying to become an urban legend in real time, slipping into random parties dressed like a nightmare and leaving no explanation behind. Or maybe it was something stranger, something that doesn't fit neatly into prank or predator. We don't know who he was. We don't know why he chose that house, that party, that group of people. And the party that stays with you isn't his entrance. It's the idea of him lingering afterward, outside in the dark, staring at someone who'd already tried to move on with their night. A costume can come off, a mask can be removed, but sometimes what's underneath is worse. It was supposed to be one of those forgettable mornings, the kind you barely remember at the end of the week. A man stepped out of his home to borrow a chair from his neighbor, an everyday favor in a quiet neighborhood. He chatted briefly, picked up the chair, turned toward his car, and mentally moved on to whatever he had planned next. Then something small, almost insignificant, caught his eye. The neighbor's gate, which was normally closed, stood open. Through the gap, he saw Pitbull standing perfectly still, staring straight at him. No wagging tail, no playful bounce, no curious sniffing, just a locked, unblinking stare that made his instincts prickle. The air felt different. Before he could step back or call out, the larger dog launched forward. Adrenaline exploded through his system. The only thing in his hands was that borrowed chair, but in a heartbeat, it transformed from casual furniture into his only shield. He raised it between them, trying to create space, moving backward, keeping his voice low. He wasn't trying to provoke the dog. He was just trying to stay on his feet and stay alive. Then the situation doubled in intensity. A second dog slipped through the open gate, a smaller animal, but just as serious, crowding his path and narrowing his options. He tried to angle his body, shift the chair, and slowly sidestep away, but the ground betrayed him. His foot slipped, and that tiny loss of balance flipped everything. The pit bull closed the distance. In an instant, he and the dog were tangled on the ground, rolling through the grass in a mess of limbs, teeth, and raw panic. The world shrank into a single desperate struggle. He could feel the animal's strength, its determination, the sheer weight behind each push. He wasn't trying to win a fight. He was trying not to be torn apart. Somewhere between the fear and the chaos, something clicked. Maybe it was an old memory of a self-defense demonstration, maybe just instinct. But he adjusted his grip, braced his body in, wrapped his arms around the dog's upper body in a controlling hold, not choking it, not brutalizing it, just locking it down so it couldn't get leverage on him. Every second stretched, his muscles screaming, his breath ragged as he tightened his grip and forced himself not to panic. He focused on staying grounded, staying steady. Slowly, incredibly, he managed to work his way back to his feet, still holding the larger dog, using his leg to gently shove the smaller one away whenever it tried to get close. The scene didn't look real. A man who had stepped outside for a simple favor was now standing in the yard, wrestling a powerful dog in his arms while another circled nearby, waiting for an opening. Inch by inch, he edged toward the gate, the chair forgotten, survival the only thing that mattered. Just when it seemed like he might reach safety, the bigger dog slipped free. It dropped to the ground, spun and lunged, its claws clamping down on his leg. Pain tore through him, sharp and immediate. But even then, he refused to let terror take over. He grabbed the dog near the collar and shoulders, anchored himself, and once again forced control back into his hands. Nobody was coming. No neighbor was rushing out. No cars slowed to help. It was just him, two dogs, and a gate that suddenly felt miles away. So he made a decision. Ignoring the pain in his leg and the burning in his arms, he hoisted the dog up and carried it back into the yard. Step by step in the chaos of the moment, the pool area appeared to be the only contained space where he could put the animal without hurting it. He guided it there, then backed out, keeping his eyes on both dogs until he could reach the gate and slam it shut. The sound of that latch closing was like a switch flipping. The noise, the snarling, the frantic shuffling, it all stopped. What rushed in to replace it was the shaking in his hands, the deep throbbing in his leg, and the realization of how close he had come to being seriously injured, or worse. He limped to his car, sat heavily in the seat, and finally let himself breathe. Later, when reporters asked him what happened, his answers were calm, almost understated. He said he didn't blame the dogs. He just hoped their owners would keep the gates secured so nothing like this could happen again. Around the neighborhood, the story spread quickly. Parents walked their routes with fresh caution. Pet owners checked and rechecked their fences and latches. People talked about how this ordinary man stayed composed in an extraordinary situation, choosing control over panic, restraint over violence. By By that evening, the chair he'd borrowed sat quietly near his home, just another object in the background. But everyone who heard what had happened that morning knew the truth. A normal day can flip into survival mode in seconds, and sometimes the only thing standing between you and disaster is what you do in the first moment of fear. On August 4th, 2007, the inside of the Staples Center in Los Angeles had been turned into a giant steel nightmare. For the XG games, builders had created the Mega Ramp, a brutal skyscraper of metal and plywood, a drop-in nearly 70 feet high, a gap the size of a small building to clear, and a quarter pipe almost 3 stories tall waiting at the end. It was designed to stretch the limits of human nerve and physics. That night, it pushed one skater right to the edge of what a body can survive. His name was Jake Brown, 32-year-old Australian known for throwing himself at tricks most people wouldn't even imagine. He'd already earned his place in the finals. This last run was supposed to be the exclamation point. The crowd quieted as he rolled down that impossibly steep slope, bored screaming across the gap before rocketing up the towering quarter pipe. In one smooth motion, Jake launched into 720, 2 full spins, no grab, nothing but balance and faith holding him to the board. For a heartbeat, he looked untouchable. Then, mid-rotation, control slipped away.
Oh man, that was the heaviest slam we've ever seen.
Instead of sticking back to the ramp, the board shot out from under him and Jake was suddenly weightless and wrong, drifting away from the wall of the quarter pipe with nothing beneath him. The arena gasped as his body turned into the air, not as a skater anymore, but as a falling object. The drop was roughly equivalent to stepping off a 4-story building with no safety net. Time stretched as thousands of people watched him plummet, utterly helpless. Then the fall ended in one brutal instant. Jake's body slammed into the flat bottom of the ramp with the force of a high-speed collision. The sound of impact was sickening. Both of his shoes blasted off his feet on contact. His back snapped in a violent arch against the wood, and then he went still. An arena that had been roaring seconds earlier went dead silent. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Cameras caught the scene from multiple angles, replaying it on screens for a horrified audience that had already feared they had just watched someone die in real time. Medics sprinted toward him, bracing for the worst. A broken spine, internal bleeding, maybe worse.
Oh my god. Oh man, that was the heaviest slam we've ever seen. Oh my god. Wow, I can't believe he made it 720.
But then against everything you'd expect after a fall like that, Jake moved, first a twitch, then an effort to roll over. And finally, he pushed himself up off the ramp. The crowd exploded, disbelief turning into a thunder of relief and shock. Jake staggered to his feet, raising an arm as if to prove to everyone, and maybe to himself, that he was still there, still alive.
Well, that is awesome.
Are you kidding me? Is he up?
He is not standing up.
There's no way he could be standing up from that.
Unbelievable.
His injuries were serious: fractured wrist, a collapsed lung, a bruised liver, and enough trauma to keep most people from ever stepping on a board again. But somehow, nothing had been permanently destroyed. The fall instantly became legend. Millions of viewers replayed the footage online, slowing it down, watching his body fall, bounce, and then stand back up, as though the laws of physics had glitched for a moment. Later, Jake said that in the air it felt like time froze, like his body instinctively twisted and braced, fighting for any chance to survive before the inevitable hit. That slam wasn't just a wipeout, it was a brutal reminder of how thin the line is between showmanship and disaster on the mega ramp. But Jake Brown's story didn't end sprawled at the bottom of that structure. Just 1 year later, he returned to the same monster that had nearly destroyed him. He dropped in again, faced the same gap, the same wall of plywood and sky, and in 2009, he didn't just survive it, he conquered it, taking home gold in big air. His fall is still one of the most infamous crashes in action sports history, a symbol of both how quickly things can go wrong and how stubborn the human will can be. His survival is a rare example of this kind of story ending in triumph. Most brushes with death don't end up so cleanly. At around 3:30 in the morning, the 700 block of A. Morton Road in Austin looked like any other quiet stretch along the edge of a park. Streetlights glowed over empty pavement, the kind of hour where even the city's noise seems to fall asleep. Officers with the Austin Police Department had just found a stolen vehicle tucked near the tree line and called for a tow truck to remove it. Once the other officers moved on to continue their patrol, Senior Officer Adam Reinhardt stayed behind to babysit the tow, standing alone in the dark with nothing but the idling truck in the quiet park for company. That silence didn't last. Two figures suddenly emerged from the shadows near the trees, stepping into the glow of its patrol vehicle's lights. They were identified as 32-year-old Kay Smith and her boyfriend, 30-year-old Brandon Thompson. Reinhardt did what officers are trained to do in a situation like that. He ordered them to show their hands, trying to keep the encounter routine and controlled. But within seconds, everything spun into chaos.
No, you guys can come out of the woods real quick. Come over here. You're detained. You're not free to go.
I can't fucking see anything.
I know. That's why I got my flashlight. Get your hand out of your pocket, man. No, you guys can come out of the woods real quick. Come over here. You're detained. You're not free to go. I know. That's why I got my flashlight. Get your hand out of your pocket, man.
What?
Get your hand out of your pocket. David 11, shots fired, shots fired. I have two down, I'm hit.
Thompson wasn't just some random passerby. He already had a history with law enforcement, a trail of drug-related and theft charges on his record, many of them dismissed or reduced over the years. As Reinhardt watched the pair, Thompson suddenly pulled the handgun. Instead of pointing it at the officer first, he turned the weapon toward the person right beside him. In a single chilling movement, he raised the gun to Kay Smith's head and fired, shooting her once in the back of the skull. Before Reinhardt could fully react to what he had just seen, Thompson turned the gun again and opened fire on the officer, hitting him, then bolting toward the brush at the edge of the park. Wounded and under fire, Reinhardt still managed to return shots as Thompson disappeared into the darkness. Backup units flooded the area as paramedics arrived, racing Smith and Reinhardt to the hospital. Kay's condition was immediately critical. Despite a week of life support and attempts to stabilize her, doctors ultimately couldn't save her. On September 17th, she was pronounced dead. Reinhardt, after surgery and a long recovery process, managed to survive his injuries. The man responsible didn't get far. While SWAT teams, K-9 units, and police helicopters searched the area, nearby residents were warned to shelter indoors. Thompson, injured and desperate to escape, tried to force his way into a nearby home to hide. The homeowner, already aware that an armed suspect was on the loose in the neighborhood, was prepared. When Thompson attempted to break in, the resident opened fire in self-defense, hitting him in the arm and leg. With nowhere left to run and now seriously wounded, Thompson was taken into custody on the spot and rushed to the hospital under guard. From there, he was booked into the Travis County Jail, facing a long list of charges: first-degree murder for the killing of Kay Smith, attempted capital murder of a peace officer, and burglary. He is being held without bond as he awaits trial. In the days that followed, people started asking hard questions. How did someone with Thompson's record, multiple previous cases involving theft and drugs, many of them dropped or softened by the courts, end up free and walking the streets with a gun in his hand? Critics pointed to Travis County's more lenient prosecution style, suggesting that a pattern of dismissing or downgrading charges may have allowed a predictable tragedy to unfold. What began as a simple stolen vehicle call, the kind of thing officers respond to every day, spiraled into a deadly chain of events. A woman shot at point-blank range, an officer nearly killed, and an entire neighborhood locked down in fear. To this day, it's not fully clear whether Thompson intentionally aimed at his girlfriend or if she was caught in the line of fire meant for the officer. What is clear is that a quiet curfew patrol in a park turned into a nightmare that never should have happened, and a reminder what can happen when repeated warnings in someone's criminal history are never truly dealt with. In recent weeks, news headlines and social media feeds in the United States have been buzzing with a question that hits every parent in the gut. Why are so many children being reported missing? One number in particular ignited the panic. In Virginia, from August 3rd to August 9th, 88 children were logged as missing. At first glance, that sounds like a nightmare unfolding in real time, but investigators say those numbers, as frightening as they appear, are actually lower than the state's usual weekly average of around 98. Most of those reports are runaways, custody disputes, or situations resolved within hours. Only a smaller fraction remain unsolved. Still, numbers alone can't calm raw emotion. Once that 88 started spreading online, it took on a life of its own. TikTok, Reddit, and other platforms, posts began warning of something far worse than statistics. Claims of organized abductions, coordinated kidnappings, and children vanishing in clusters. Then those fears latched onto something oddly familiar: ice cream trucks. Video after video showed trucks rolling through quiet neighborhoods long after dark, their cheerful jingles drifting through deserted streets at midnight or even later. One clip showed a truck gliding past at 1 a.m., its music echoing through a neighborhood where every porch light was off and every child was supposed to be asleep. For some, it was nothing more than a late-night hustle, a vendor working odd hours. For others, it looked like bait. Rumors began to swirl. Were these trucks scouting for targets? Were they connected somehow to the spike in missing reports? Parents started sharing stories of suspicious vehicles, of trucks appearing out of nowhere, looping past playgrounds or circling apartment complexes. In Virginia, police pushed back hard. State authorities went on record saying there is no evidence of a mass kidnapping operation, no active investigation linking ice cream trucks to missing children, and no confirmed pattern tying these cases together. They argued that the frightening numbers are partly the result of Virginia's aggressive reporting system, where every single missing child, whether a runaway or caught in a custody fight, is entered into the national database. Many other states don't report as comprehensively, which makes Virginia's totals look unusually high. But logic and policy don't always stand a chance against fear. For anxious parents scrolling through their phones at 2 a.m., the official explanations sound distant and cold. What they see instead are viral clips of trucks drifting past at strange hours, comments from strangers saying they've heard similar music in their own neighborhoods, and thread after thread linking missing child alerts to eerie nighttime sightings. And it's not just Virginia. In Texas, Ohio, Michigan, and other states, people have started claiming that they've seen ice cream trucks where they don't belong, at hours that don't make sense, right around the time missing alerts flashed on their screens. Fact checkers, journalists, and law enforcement keep repeating the same message. These stories are coincidences, distortions, or outright misinformation. They say there is no hidden network, no sinister fleet of trucks prowling the suburbs. But online, the rumor is stronger than the correction. Each time a new video appears, a shaky shot of a truck gliding through a dark street with no one around, the story grows. Fact and fiction blur until they're almost impossible to separate. So what's actually true? Authorities insist the numbers remain within historical ranges, that every Amber Alert issued in Virginia this year ended with a child being found safe. On paper, the system is working, but emotionally, the fear doesn't go away, because every missing report is a real child and a real family whose life has been ripped open. One disappearance is enough to haunt a community for years. When rumors attach themselves to something ordinary, a passing truck, a song every child recognizes, that fear becomes something else. It turns the everyday scenery of suburban life into a backdrop of suspicion. Officially, there is no conspiracy, no confirmed wave of coordinated abductions linked to ice cream trucks. Unofficially, stories of strange vehicles, haunting jingles, and unexplained disappearances continue to spread. And somewhere between data and dread, families are left with a feeling that doesn't show up in any report. The sense that no matter what the numbers say, the world is not as safe as it looks. On November 10th, 2025, what should have been just another relief flight turned into a scene of devastation in the skies over Florida. That morning, 53-year-old pilot Alexander Werman and his 22-year-old daughter, Serena, climbed into the cockpit of a 1976 Beechcraft B-100 King Air at Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. For them, this wasn't some leisure trip. They had been flying back and forth to Jamaica in the wake of Hurricane Melissa, trying to bring hope into a place that had just been torn apart. Melissa slammed into Jamaica as a violent Category 5 monster on October 28th, hammering the island with winds over 160 miles per hour. Entire neighborhoods were swamped, roofs torn away, schools and mall businesses shattered across parishes like St. James and Westmoreland. Thousands were displaced, and the economic damage was estimated at nearly $8 billion, an almost unimaginable blow for a country already struggling with tourism and financial instability. In the chaos that followed, humanitarian groups, churches, and volunteers rushed to help. Airplanes became lifelines, carrying in everything from medical kits and water filters to basic supplies for people who had lost everything. Alexander, founder of the Cayman Islands Christian ministry called Ignite the Fire, had thrown himself into that effort. His ministry was known for youth outreach and support across the Caribbean, and this mission fit exactly into his calling. Serena, who had grown up watching her father serve others, joined him as part of the crew, sharing a sense of duty and compassion. Together, they had already completed several relief flights, working closely with groups like Crisis Response International and others operating in Montego Bay and surrounding areas. To keep these missions going, they had recently invested in the King Air, an older twin-engine turboprop registered as N30HG, but capable of carrying people and cargo quickly across the water. At around 10:18 a.m., their aircraft lifted off from Fort Lauderdale. Weather conditions were clear, skies calm enough that no one watching would have suspected anything was wrong. The plane climbed steadily, reaching roughly 11,000 feet as it pushed toward cruise altitude. Then something changed. Flight data captured so far suggests a sudden loss of control, the kind of rapid, unexplained drop pilots and investigators dread. Beneath their flight path lay a residential area dotted with houses, backyards, and small ponds, places where people were just beginning another ordinary day. Instead, those homes became unwilling witnesses to catastrophe. Emergency crews soon converged on a retention pond after reports that a plane had gone down. There, responders found the King Air partially submerged, its fuselage broken and fuel slick spreading across the water surface. Debris was scattered around the crash site, some of it lying dangerously close to houses. A landing gear wheel had come down just a few steps from a backyard pool, a grim reminder how close this had come to becoming a larger tragedy on the ground. Despite efforts, both Alexander and Serena were found dead and their bodies recovered the next day. With them gone, all that remained were wreckage, questions, and a community left trying to make sense of how a mission of mercy had ended in silence beneath the water. By November 2025, investigators from the NTSB and FAA were still piecing together the cause. Clear weather meant it was unlikely to be a storm or turbulence that brought the aircraft down. Instead, suspicion shifted toward the plane itself. Aging airframes, older mechanical systems, and components under constant stress can all become weak points, especially during climb when engines and structures are working hard. Without a full black box analysis finished, everything from a sudden engine failure to a critical systems malfunction remains on the table. Aviation experts have already raised concerns about relying on older general aviation aircraft for long-distance relief flights, especially when they lack the advanced redundancies built into modern commercial jets. Despite several successful missions before this one, the aircraft's final moments show how quickly routine can fall apart. In one sense, there was a small grim stroke of luck. The plane impacted in a retention pond rather than directly into the surrounding homes. Had it hit a house or fallen onto a road, the number of casualties could have multiplied. But that offers little comfort to the people who knew Alexander and Serena, or to the communities they were trying to help. A father and daughter set out to bring aid to hurricane survivors, only to become victims of another kind of disaster. In the end, the crash left behind a pod full of wreckage, a stack of unanswered technical questions, and a haunting reminder that even the most selfless missions are never fully safe once the wheels leave the ground. In the peaceful suburb of Katy, Texas, October 31st, 2023 began like any other calm morning. Misty Cove Drive sat under soft daylight, the kind of neighborhood where people felt safe enough to let their guard down. At around 8:30 a.m., 83-year-old Dennis McGee stepped outside his home, not expecting anything unusual. He noticed 2 dogs moving near his yard, wandering and uncertain. They didn't snarl or charge. They looked tired, confused, maybe lost. The kind of animals most people would assume belonged to a nearby house. Surveillance footage later showed Dennis approaching them the way kind-hearted people do, with open hands, a gentle posture, and an offer of water. No yelling, no threatening gestures, just simple compassion for 2 animals that seemed out of place. His stepdaughter, Ella, would later say that when they first saw the dogs, they didn't seem dangerous at all. In fact, they looked almost grateful that someone was paying attention to them. For a brief moment, it was an image of quiet kindness, an elderly man offering help to strays who seemed to need it. Then everything changed. Inside the house, Ella heard her mother's voice shouting Dennis's name, followed by Dennis calling out. It wasn't the normal tone of someone asking for a hand. It was a sound that stops your heart cold, the raw, panicked cry that tells you something is terribly wrong. Ella grabbed the first thing she could find, an umbrella, and rushed outside. In the short time it took to reach the yard, the scene had transformed. The same dogs Dennis had approached just moments earlier were now attacking him, dragging him down, their attention locked entirely on him. They weren't distracted by her arrival. They weren't interested in anything but the man on the ground. Ella didn't hesitate. She swung the umbrella again and again, shouting, trying to break their focus, trying to wedge space between her stepfather and the dogs. Her mother hovered close, desperate and terrified, but unwilling to run back inside. They refused to abandon him, even as the situation felt more and more out of control. Next door, a neighbor heard the screaming and rushed outside. He later told reporters he had rarely seen courage like what he watched in that yard. 2 women refusing to back down, putting themselves directly between the man they loved and the animals that were tearing into him. He said the dogs never really turned on them, never fully redirected their aggression. Their focus stayed fixed on Dennis, which made the whole scene even more horrifying, like watching something play out that you couldn't easily interrupt, as if the moment wasn't already chaotic enough. A 43-year-old driver passing by saw the attack unfolding in real time. Instead of continuing on, he slammed his car to a stop, jumped out, and grabbed a piece of wire he saw lying nearby. He tried to scare the dogs away, hitting the ground and swinging near them to draw their attention off Dennis. For a moment it worked, but as soon as the dogs shifted their focus toward him, he had to scramble up onto the roof of Ella's car to avoid being attacked himself. He made it up, but it left a dent in the metal and a deep imprint in everyone's memory of just how dangerous those few minutes had become.
He came out with some kind of wire and he was hitting them with that too. And then the dogs went after him.
By the time deputies arrived, the tension on Misty Cove Drive was thick enough to feel in the air. Officers tried to end things without using deadly force. One moved in carefully, hoping to control the animals and contain them. But the dogs lashed out again, biting a deputy and forcing a split-second decision: keep trying to manage the situation gently and risk more lives, or escalate. In the end, protecting the people in that yard had to come first. When the dust finally settled, the silence that replaced the chaos was almost unbearable. Ella's mother, still shaking, said she had never seen anything like it in her life. What haunted her most was a single thought she kept repeating: that as horrific as it was, she was grateful this had happened to adults and not a young one walking by alone. The what if hung in the air long after the sirens faded. Investigators searched the area for clues about where the dogs had come from. A collar discovered in the grass hinted that they might have had an owner, but no clear answers emerged. Lost pets? Abandoned animals? Something else? No one could say for sure. The investigation stayed open, the questions lingering. Dennis was rushed to a Houston hospital downtown. He needed surgery, and despite his injuries, he stayed conscious and able to speak. A small miracle in a morning full of worst-case scenarios. The deputy and the Good Samaritan were also expected to recover from their injuries. As the day went on, neighbors gathered in small clusters along the sidewalk, talking in hushed voices, replaying every second they'd seen or heard. Many said they were humbled by the bravery that came out of nowhere. From Dennis, who walked out just trying to help. From Ella, who charged straight into danger armed with nothing but an umbrella. From the passerby, who stopped his car and risked his own safety for strangers. And from the deputy who stepped between the dogs and the family, knowing how quickly things could go wrong. By sunset, Misty Cove Drive looked ordinary again. The street was calm, the yard was quiet for everyone who witnessed what happened that Halloween morning. Nothing about that place felt the same. It became a reminder that danger doesn't always arrive with warning signs. Sometimes it wears a familiar shape, wanders up to your fence, and waits for you to decide whether to step outside. What was supposed to be a magical evening above the Netherlands turned into a scene that looked more like the aftermath crash than a celebration.
Terug naar gisteren. Een groep van 34 mensen stijgt op in een van de grootste luchtballonnen van Nederland. De rit verloopt zonder problemen. En omdat de luchtballon zo groot is, trekt het veel bekijks.
Er zitten heel veel mensen in, ja. Heel veel mensen, ja. Kijk hoe groot die ook is.
Deze video is vlak voor de landing gemaakt. Wat er daarna precies fout ging, is dus nog onduidelijk.
It happened in the countryside of Friesland, near the village of De Hoeve. The sun was dropping, painting the fields in soft gold, when a hot air balloon drifted low over the landscape. Inside the basket were 34 people, gathered for a special outing. Among them was a 66-year-old veterinary assistant from the nearby town of Oosterwolde, invited by her colleagues as part of a joyful event in her honor. The balloon itself was one of the largest in the country, its massive envelope towering overhead, carrying the weight of dozens of people who trusted that slow, gentle flight to be safe. At first, everything was exactly what they'd hoped for. The balloon floated peacefully over quiet farms and narrow roads, its shadow crawling across the fields below. Passengers took photos, laughed, and pointed out landmarks, enjoying a view most people never get to see. But as the evening went on, the weather shifted. Wind speeds picked up, stronger than what had been predicted. To someone on the ground, the balloon might still have looked graceful, just drifting a bit faster. To those inside, it soon became clear that something was wrong. The ground was rising too quickly. The descent was no longer soft and controlled, it was fast. When the basket finally hit the meadow, it didn't gently kiss the earth. It slammed into it. The impact was brutal enough to send some passengers airborne, launching them out of the basket and onto the grass. Others inside were thrown against the sides or into one another. The tranquility of the countryside shattered. Panicked shouts and cries for help replaced the quiet rustle of the fields.
Helemaal hier. De mand met de passagiers werd vervolgens bijna 150 meter over het weiland meegesleept. Mensen werden uit de mand geslingerd. 3 van hen raakten zwaar gewond en liggen in het ziekenhuis. 1 vrouw overleefde het ongeluk niet.
Within minutes, the rural calm was overwhelmed by emergency sirens. 14 ambulances, firefighters, Red Cross teams, and trauma helicopters converged on what should have been an empty patch of land. On-site, rescuers fought to stabilize the injured. CPR was performed in the grass as shocked survivors watched the night spiral into chaos. Despite their efforts, 1 life could not be saved. The 66-year-old woman whose colleagues had wanted to give her a night to remember. 5 others were badly hurt, 3 of them so seriously they had to be rushed away in critical condition. In the days that followed, her veterinary practice became a place of mourning. Clients and co-workers left flowers, candles, and handwritten notes on the door, turning the entrance into a makeshift memorial. Investigators moved quickly to piece together what had happened. The Dutch Safety Board reported that wind gusts had climbed above 30 kilometers per hour, stronger than what the pilot and passengers had expected when they took off. Witnesses on the ground later said the balloon looked like it was dropping too quickly, the basket striking the ground once, bouncing violently, then crashing back down. For those inside, there was no time to prepare, no chance to brace themselves properly. This was the deadliest balloon accident in the Netherlands in more than 3 decades, the worst since 1993. Operations were swiftly suspended. Other balloon companies grounded their flights. Suddenly, an experience so often sold as romantic and serene was under a harsh spotlight. People began asking questions. Were the weather checks strict enough? Were safety limits followed? Could this have been prevented? Or was it a freak twist of wind and timing? Meanwhile, the meadow itself returned to silence. The grass still moves with the breeze. The sky above De Hoeve still looks calm and inviting. But for the people who were there and for the families who lost or nearly lost someone, that peaceful landscape will always be marked by what happened. A trip meant to lift people into the sky ended with them crashing back to earth, proving how quickly wonder can turn into horror when nature shifts its mood. On April 1st, 2025, in the Butanta neighborhood of Sao Paulo, Brazil, a single decision turned a morning commute into a fatal confrontation. 43-year-old architect Jefferson Dias Aguiar was driving his pickup truck with a friend beside him, navigating the city streets along Rua Desembargador Armando Fairbanks. Aguiar was not just another driver easing through traffic. He was a respected architect who had built his own firm, recently married, and was making plans to start a family. That morning, though, his attention was pulled away from his future by something unfolding just ahead of the road. A motorcycle had stopped, and its rider, later confirmed to be on a stolen bike, was pointing a gun directly at a woman. In broad daylight, he was robbing her, taking her phone and even stripping away her wedding ring as she stood on the sidewalk, exposed and defenseless. To many people, it might have looked like yet another crime in a city that sees thousands of them every year. Something you pass by, remember for a moment, and then try to forget. But Aguiar wasn't wired that way. Friends and family knew him as someone who simply could not turn his back on a person in danger. In that split second, as he watched the gunman threaten the woman, he made his choice. Instead of driving past and leaving her to her fate, he stepped on the accelerator and aimed his truck at the assailant. It was a desperate move, but also a calculated one. Street robberies like this often end with the criminals weaving through traffic on motorcycles, disappearing into the maze of the city long before police sirens can even be heard. Aguiar's intervention was an attempt to break that cycle. For a moment, it looked like he'd succeeded. The motorcycle went down, the thief was knocked off balance, and the woman had a chance to escape from immediate harm. But the threat was far from over. The robber, armed and refusing to surrender, pulled himself back up almost immediately. Aguiar had already stepped out of his truck, perhaps believing the danger had passed, now that the bike was down and the woman was no longer directly in front of the gun. That assumption cost him everything. The assailant closed a distance and opened fire at close range, shooting Aguiar 3 times, 2 bullets slamming into his right arm and 1 into his neck. With the shots echoing through the street, the woman managed to flee into relative safety. While Aguiar collapsed onto the pavement, emergency services rushed him to the university hospital and doctors worked to keep him alive. The damage was too severe. Later that same day, he died from his injuries, turning a courageous act into a tragic final chapter. By November 2025, investigators had confirmed the identity of the shooter, 20-year-old Hugo dos Santos Araujo, a young man who already had a history of robbery. Araujo eventually turned himself in, claiming that he believed Aguiar was an undercover officer trying to take him down, not a civilian acting on instinct. His accomplice, Juan Felipe Celestino, who had helped him escape on another motorcycle after the attack, remained at large with no confirmed arrest reported at the time. Police suspect the two may have been connected to other robberies in the same region, suggesting a pattern of violent street crime far beyond the single encounter. The case sparked debates throughout the community and beyond. On one side, Aguiar was hailed as a hero, someone who refused to look away while a stranger had a gun pointed at her. On the other, his death became a sobering reminder of just how dangerous it can be for civilians to interfere in armed crimes, especially in a city like Sao Paulo, where weapons, desperation, and violence collide with frightening speed. Authorities and safety experts stress that while acts of bravery are admired, rushing toward an armed suspect without proper training or backup can end in tragedy more often than rescue. In the end, Aguiar's story sits in that uncomfortable space between courage and risk. His decision saved the woman from being further terrorized and likely stopped the robber from immediately targeting someone else. But it also cost him his life. It left his family and community grieving a man whose instinct overrode his instinct for self-preservation. His name now stands as both a symbol of selfless bravery and a warning about the deadly unpredictability of confronting armed criminals alone. TikTok user HillOG22 posted a video that hit a nerve with anyone who's ever stayed in an unfamiliar house at night and felt like they weren't alone. In her story, she explains that she works as a caregiver for an elderly woman who hasn't left her bed in nearly 2 years. The woman's health is fragile and she requires constant attention. So on this particular week, the carer was spending full nights in the home, sleeping in a separate room so she could be close if anything happened. On the second night, she heard strange noises she couldn't explain, shuffling sounds, faint bumps, the kind of noises you try to rationalize as the house settling. By the third night, curiosity and unease had mixed into something stronger, so she set up a camera to film while she slept. The footage which she later shared is grainy and dim, the way most late-night recordings are. You can see the carer asleep, the room quiet, nothing obviously wrong. Then, in the background, a figure appears in the hallway. It's the elderly woman, or at least, it looks like her. According to the carer, this woman hadn't been able to get up on her own in years. But in the clip, she appears to move down the hall toward the room where the carer is sleeping, her gait unnatural, unsteady, but undeniably mobile. The figure approaches the doorway, moving closer than she should be able to, and then just as the carer stirs and begins to wake up, the woman seems to simply vanish from the frame. The comment section exploded. Some viewers are convinced they had just watched something paranormal, a bedridden woman walking in the dead of night and then fading into the air. Others try to ground the incident in medical reality, pointing to a phenomenon called sundowning, often seen in people with dementia. During sundowning episodes, confusion, agitation, and unusual behavior can spike during the evening and nighttime hours. Sleepwalking, wandering, and seemingly impossible bursts of energy can happen, sometimes with no memory of it the next day. In that explanation, the woman might have pushed herself out of bed in a disoriented state, stumbled toward the carer's room, and slipped out of view just as the carer woke up and disrupted the moment. But even that possibility doesn't fully calm the nerves. There are other theories too, that the footage was edited, that a second person was involved, that the entire situation was staged to go viral. After all, social media is full of manufactured scares designed to harvest views and shares. Yet the uneasy tone in the carer's voice and the way the clip is presented made many people doubt it was all fake, whether it showed a real medical episode, something spiritual, or a clever hoax. One fact is hard to ignore. Watching someone who's supposed to be completely immobile suddenly appear outside the room in the middle of the night is deeply unsettling. In the end, the video left people with more questions than answers. Was the woman's mind momentarily overriding her failing body? Was it a visual glitch, a trick of the lens, or something darker slipping through the cracks of an ordinary night? The only thing everyone could agree on was how it made them feel. Uneasy, creeped out, and suddenly very aware how little we really know about what happens around us while we sleep. And sometimes, the ones who sense these strange shifts before we do aren't people at all. They're the animals lying quietly at our feet. For thousands of years, dogs have lived alongside humans not just as pets, but as silent guardians. Their senses reach far beyond what we're capable of. Where our world seems simple, theirs is layered with smells, sounds, and signals we can't even detect. A dog's nose can have up to 300 million scent receptors. Ours, by comparison, barely reach 5 million. They can pick up odors diluted to almost unimaginable levels, like detecting a single drop of blood in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That isn't just impressive trivia. It means they live in a universe of information we will never fully understand. Hospitals across the world now use trained dogs to sniff out cancer, Parkinson's disease, or oncoming seizures long before medical equipment or symptoms make anything obvious. To the people who rely on them, it doesn't just feel like biology, it feels like intuition. Their gift is more than just raw scent detection, it's the way they behave when something isn't right. They stare at doors before someone knocks, they pace restlessly before storms or earthquakes, they whine, bark, or refuse to move when danger is close, even if we don't see it yet. That's what makes the next story so unsettling. TikTok user Tiffany Holmes shared a clip from what was supposed to be a normal walk with her dog. The video starts out like any other, a calm everyday route through a familiar area. Then, without warning, her dog's behavior changes. The animal stops dead, muscles tight, ears up, staring in one direction with a kind of intensity that's impossible to ignore.
He stopped and just stared at me. It's a safe neighborhood. We walk this route every night, hundreds of times. I've never seen him like this. If anything, he's kind of aggressive on our walks. There's a main road just a block ahead. Day or night, he refused to go back. Walks are his favorite thing, and he drug me home. After a week, because he still won't walk here, we drove to the spot since there were neighbors out during the day, and I said, "Show me." I trust him, so we'll walk other places from now on. Has your dog ever sensed something you couldn't explain?
No matter how much she encourages, the dog refuses to move forward. It's not the playful stubbornness of a pet that wants to go home. It's something closer to panic, planting paws, pulling back on the leash, trying to steer her away from a certain stretch of the path. Tiffany's voice in the video shifts from amused to uneasy. You can hear the moment she stops treating it like a joke and starts wondering what the dog is sensing that she can't see. There's nothing obvious in frame, no person lurking, no loud noise, no animal rustling in the bushes. Just a dog that has decided, for reasons it can't explain, that going any further would be a bad idea. When she shared the clip online, the responses poured in. People flooded the comments with their own stories. Dogs that refused to enter certain rooms, pets that dragged their owners away from alleys just before something bad happened, animals that paced and whined moments before accidents or emergencies. One commenter wrote about her sister going for a jog with her dog. Partway through, the animal abruptly stopped and refused to continue down a particular stretch of trail. They turned back, annoyed but trusting the dog's instincts. Later, they learned that on that exact route, around that same time, a girl had been assaulted by a man hiding in the bushes. Pure coincidence or something else? Skeptics argue that we remember the hits and forget the misses. For every time a dog predicts danger, there are hundreds of walks where nothing special happens. Maybe that's true, but for people who've had moments like Tiffany's, that explanation doesn't feel complete. There's something about the way dogs react. Tensing at a sound we don't hear, staring at a point in the darkness we can't make sense of, refusing to pass a certain spot as if the air itself feels wrong to them. Whether it's instinct, scent, subtle vibrations, or something stranger, one thing is clear. These animals often respond with threats before we even know they're there. Dogs aren't just our companions, they stand at the boundary between what we understand and what we don't, catching hints of storms, sickness, or nearby threats long before our own senses catch up. They remind us that the world around us is richer and more complicated than it appears. From the way they pull us away from danger to the way they stare into the dark and growl at something we can't see, they act as living alarm systems tuned to frequencies we'll never fully grasp. And while we like to think we're the ones protecting them, stories like these suggest that more often than not, they're the ones quietly protecting us. Mandy lives far off the beaten path in the Appalachian Mountains, tucked away in a house surrounded on all sides by thick, endless forest. Out there, nights are long, quiet, and heavy, with only the sound of insects and distant animals breaking the silence. As she is so isolated, she relies on several CCTV cameras set up around the property. They are equipped with sound and motion sensors, perfect for catching wandering wildlife or the occasional stray animal that comes a little too close to the house. Most of the time, when an alert pops up, it is something harmless. Deer drifting through trees, raccoons shuffling through the brush, maybe the odd fox passing by. But one evening, she receives a notification that sounds completely different from anything she has heard before, and it instantly puts her on edge. When she placed the recording back, it doesn't start with shuffling footsteps or an animal cry. It begins with a sharp, chilling whistle that cuts through the night like a signal. Right after it, a low, almost pleading voice drifts in, asking to be let inside. The tone is soft, but there is something deeply unsettling about how close it sounds. Mandy pulls up her live feeds immediately, expecting to see someone standing on her porch or near one of the doors. To her surprise, every camera view shows the same thing. Nothing. The doorway is empty, the steps are clear, and the woods at the edge of the property stand perfectly still. Yet the whispers keep going, echoing right into the microphone as if someone is leaning in close, just out of sight. Some viewers later claim they can make out a faint face in the tree line when they pause the footage at just the right moment, but nothing clearly identifiable appears. All that can be confirmed is the unnatural whistle, that disembodied voice asking to come in. For a brief moment, Mandy considers calling the police, but what would she even tell them? That the wind talked? That a camera picked up a whisper with no person attached to it? With no visible intruder and no obvious threat? She knows they're not going to drive out into the mountains over something weird on the speakers. Still uneasy, she switches to another angle, hoping it was a glitch or odd echo in just one unit. Instead, what she finds on the other camera is even worse. From her doorbell camera, the same voice returns. The same whistle cuts in first, followed by the same request, "Let me in." This time it sounds clearer, closer, as if the source of the voice is positioned just inches from the lens. But on screen, the porch is empty. No shadow, no shape, nothing at all. It looks like the house is alone in the night, yet she can hear someone speaking. To rule out the idea that a person might be hiding just outside the frame, Mandy uploads the third clip, this one from a camera mounted higher than the others that show a much wider area. The entire front of the house and surrounding yard are visible. There is nowhere for anyone to stand without being captured by at least one of the cameras. Even so, the voice continues, drifting through the speakers as if the cameras are picking up something that is not really there. Days go by without anything strange happening, and she starts to convince herself that it might be over. Then very late one night, the whispers came back. This time, there is no mistaking what's being said. The voice is stronger, drawn out, and far more insistent. "Let me in," it repeats, sounding almost frustrated now, like whatever is out there is getting impatient. Many people watching the footage later say that this is the moment they would have packed a bag, locked the door, and driven until the mountains were far behind them. But Mandy stays, uncertain what she is dealing with and not wanting to abandon her home. Unfortunately, what happens next suggests that whatever was begging to come inside might have finally gotten its wish.
I gotta change it. It's all wet. Maybe I have to. It's all wet. I'm sorry, but you keep in through the bed. Some of the things. Yes. I know. Mama's gonna be in the bed. I know. I tried giving you the butters. You wouldn't take the butters. Now you have nothing for butters. No butters for what now? No butters for you now. I'm not giving you butters now. Oh. I'm just getting another bottle.
The last clip in our series of uploads is not from an outdoor camera. It is from one positioned inside the house. Mandy claims she heard none of this while it was being recorded. No rumble, no whisper, nothing unusual at all. But when she reviews the footage, a deep, low rumbling sound fills the room, like something heavy shifting just out of view. Underneath that noise, almost buried beneath it, is a faint whispering, something just below the threshold of clear words, but undeniably present. Some viewers quickly jump to the idea of a hacker, someone accessing her system remotely and injecting fake audio into her feeds. To address that, Mandy records herself speaking directly into one of the camera microphones to demonstrate what a genuine voice sounds like on her setup.
A video just showing you what it sounds like if someone were talking through the ring. Well, what it sounds like when I talk through the ring, what it sounds like on my end. And I just wanted to see what it sounded like because I wasn't sure. It's very loud. There's like an echo, and then there is also interference that you can hear, but I don't know if it was because I was standing next to the, because I was standing so close to the actual ring device. Maybe that's what was causing the interference. We also have 24/7 professional monitoring, so that's monitoring for any triggers of the alarm, but also it monitors for hacking, people hacking into your into your camera. So I'm gonna upload it here. I don't think that's what it was because I think I would have heard it. Hello?
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 So if I'm talking through, I cannot see because it sounds very loud. Somebody was hacking and talking through that camera. Can you hear the echo? So I don't know if someone was hacking it and talking through it, but I really don't think so. It's a Ring camera, but we have 24/7 monitoring, so I think I would get some kind of alert if it was being hacked, but I'm not 100% sure.
The comparison makes it clear that whatever is on the strange clip does not match the normal audio quality of a person standing there and talking. Others suggest a more grounded explanation. Maybe it's an animal, they say, a crow calling in a strange tone, an owl, or wind somehow resonating through the structure of the house and creating sounds that just happen to resemble words. That might be enough to explain the outdoor recordings. Noise traveling through the woods, echoing, warping as it passes trees and walls. But that last indoor clip, the whispering that seems to come from inside the room itself, is a lot harder to dismiss. There are no footsteps, no visible intruder, just that unnatural blend of rumble and hushed speech captured in the dead of night while Mandy slept unaware. Whether it's a hoax, a bizarre technical glitch, or something that defies easy explanation, her experience remains deeply unsettling. And until more evidence shows up, one question hangs in the air like the echo of that whistle. What or who kept asking to be let inside? This next story also unfolds somewhere in the Appalachian region, where empty roads cut through miles of forest and the night often feels like it belongs more to the mountains than to the people driving through them. A man is out late making deliveries, the sort of job that forces you into lonely stretches of road long after houses have gone dark. As he travels along one of these quiet routes, something on the side of the road catches his eye. It's just a shape at first, a dark outline that doesn't quite match the trees or the underbrush around it. Whatever it is, stands still for a moment, separate from the rest of the scenery. The difference is enough to grab his full attention. He eases off the accelerator and leans forward, trying to get a better look. For a second, it looks like there really is something there, standing at the edge of the forest. But before his eyes can properly focus on it, the shape slips backward into the darkness, swallowed by the tree line. Just ahead, illuminated in the harsh beam of his lights, is a playground. A single swing set stands out against the trees, and on one of the swings, a small figure sits alone, legs dangling, gently moving back and forth. He realizes he is looking at a young one, apparently sitting there in the middle of nowhere. There are no nearby houses, No driveways, no signs that this is part of a neighborhood or a park. It's just a lonely piece of playground equipment sitting beside an isolated road. The sight of a young one out here at this hour with no adults nearby and no lights in the distance sends a cold ripple down his spine. The swing continues its slow, eerie motion, almost as if the forest itself is holding its breath and watching. The man pulls his car to the side of the road, torn between concern and a deep sense that something is wrong. He glances away for only a brief moment, maybe to reach for his phone or check his mirrors. When he looks back, the swing is still moving, but the young one is gone. The seat is empty. There is no one walking away, no small figurine running across the clearing, nothing to explain how they disappeared so quickly. Yet the swing keeps going, creaking softly as it sways back and forth into the cool night air, as if someone stepped off it only a second before. The movement doesn't stop, it just slowly loses momentum, and with every passing second, the man's unease grows heavier. A chill runs through him that has nothing to do with the temperature. It feels like a warning, like he has stumbled onto something he was never meant to see.
Fucking look at this. Fucking motherfucker on it. Look, seriously.
Was it a lost young one, somehow out here alone with no one to care for them, a wandering spirit taking on a familiar shape, or something stranger still, something that knows how to look harmless from a distance? Overwhelmed by that awful sense that he should not linger here any longer, he climbs back into his vehicle and drives away, leaving the lonely, swaying swing behind in the darkness. On May 15, 2018, something deeply unsettling was captured on camera by YouTuber Ash Vlogs, and many viewers still argue about whether she accidentally recorded a harmless stranger or a full-blown lurker keeping tabs on her. Ash had fallen asleep in her apartment, only to wake suddenly before dawn with that instinctive feeling that something wasn't right. When she looked toward her window, where the blinds were cracked open just enough to see through, she froze. Parked across from her apartment was a car she didn't recognize. Engine off, headlights gone, but a figure inside, sitting perfectly still, and Ash could feel it. Whoever sat there was watching her.
I don't want to go back to sleep because there's just this guy sitting here looking in like what?
It was 5 a.m. The hour and everything feels distorted and heavy. When your body is awake, but your mind is still trying to catch up. Her voice shakes on the recording as she whispers that she doesn't want to go back to sleep, not with a stranger staring directly into her window like he's waiting for something. She zooms the camera toward the vehicle, trying to understand whether the man is actually watching her or whether exhaustion is playing tricks on her. But here's the unsettling part. He doesn't move, not even when she shifts the blinds. His face is turned toward her apartment the entire time, unmoving, unblinking, and completely unbothered about being seen. She doesn't confront him. She doesn't go outside. She doesn't even grab the license plate. At that hour, doing anything felt too risky, but she filmed just enough to prove she wasn't imagining it, capturing the still silhouette inside the parked car, motionless as a statue, long before the sun has even come up.
Finally. Fuck you. Jesus Christ, look at the time, guys. 5 in the morning.
Eventually, the car drives off, but the strangeness of the moment doesn't go away. The footage bothers her for the rest of the day. Was he actually looking at her? Why her window? Why at that hour? With no answers and no way to shake the feeling, she uploads the clip to YouTube, hoping viewers can make sense of what she saw. For a year after that, nothing else happens. She films normal vlogs, daily life, nothing even close to what happened that morning, until suddenly, the lurker comes back. Only this time, he's not alone. Ash's friend Jordan is out shopping when a stranger dressed head to toe in black appears on camera. He's not browsing. He's not wandering. He's searching the aisles like he's hunting for someone specific. When he finds Jordan, he steps forward and appears to say his name, quietly but with certainty, like he wants to make sure he has the right person. And then things get disturbing. More people appear, a coordinated group, moving with intention, surrounding Jordan as if this has been planned long before the camera ever started recording. Ash later describes it as a network of lurkers, organized, prepared, and following some kind of plan that she and Jordan were never meant to understand. Jordan is overwhelmed, outnumbered, and then, in a moment viewers still debate endlessly, he's taken. No one knows what happened after that. No explanation, no follow-up, just a growing belief that either Ash stumbled into one of the strangest art projects ever created, or something real, something dark, was circling around her and her friends long before she ever pressed record. The third clip begins with a family dealing with a mystery much closer to home. They start noticing odd holes appearing along the boards of their backyard fence. At first, they shrug it off as the work of a persistent animal, maybe a raccoon digging in the same spot, maybe a stray dog trying to squeeze through. But something about the marks doesn't quite match that explanation. The edges are too clean, the shape too precise. It looks less like random scratching and more like someone or something has been deliberately working at the same sections over and over. As more of these perfectly formed openings begin to appear, their curiosity finally outweighs their comfort. They decide to review the security footage from their cameras, expectant to confirm their original theory and catch a raccoon or some other nocturnal visitor in the act. Instead, when they hit play, they are greeted by a sight that chills them. Late at night, a tall, thin humanoid figure steps into frame. Its limbs look strangely long, the joints almost too fluid, and the way it moves isn't quite right. It doesn't walk like a normal person, it glides, smooth and unnatural, as if its body is mimicking human motion but hasn't fully mastered it. The figure approaches the fence and pauses, turning its attention to the same section where the odd holes had been appearing. It leans in, pressing close as though it is inspecting the boards or feeling for a weak spot. For a moment, it looks like it's testing the boundary, searching for a way through. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, it slips back into the darkness beyond the fence. It never actually steps onto the property. It doesn't cross a line, but watching it stand there, right at the edge, is enough to make anyone watching the video feel exposed. The family realizes this is not just an animal burrowing under the boards. This is something tall, upright, and disturbingly focused on their boundary line. Stories of strange humanoid shapes are nothing new in the Appalachian region. For generations, locals have whispered about pale figures wandering the tree lines at night, mimics that adopt human shapes but never quite get them right, and watchers that linger at the edge of rural homes, content to stay just outside the light. Whether those tales are folklore or distorted memories, this footage fits uncomfortably well with those old accounts. The figure's height, its thin limbs, its unnatural movements, all of it slides neatly into that same unsettling category of almost human but not quite. The family cannot help but ask the obvious questions. What was this thing trying to do? Was it looking for a way into the yard, testing their defenses? And why did it keep returning to the same spot along the fence, night after night instead of moving on? They are relieved it never actually stepped onto their property, but that relief is mixed with the knowledge that something out there was interested in the barrier between them and the dark woods beyond. And in quiet moments, they can't shake one final thought. If it ever decides that the fence is no longer enough to keep it out, will they even hear it coming? In Afghanistan's Bamiyan Valley, there was a time when two colossal figures watched over everything. Carved into towering sandstone cliffs in the 6th century, they weren't simple decorations. They were guardians, monuments to belief, memory, and the passage of countless generations. One stood about 55 meters tall, the other around 38, both of them carved directly into the rock. Their niches looming over what was once a key stretch of the Silk Road. For nearly 1,500 years, traders, pilgrims, and travelers passed beneath their gaze. The statues blended Greek-influenced artistic style with deep Buddhist devotion, standing as proof that Afghanistan was once a crossroads where cultures and religions intertwined instead of colliding. They survived what most monuments never do. Empires rose and fell around them. Invaders swept through the region. Weather chewed at their surfaces. Yet the Buddhas remained, weather-worn but still standing, their presence a constant in a world that kept changing. That endurance ended in March 2001. Under the rule of the Taliban, leader Mullah Muhammad Omar issued a decree. The statues were considered idols and were to be destroyed under his regime's strict interpretation of Islamic law. What followed wasn't reckless vandalism, it was methodical annihilation. First came anti-aircraft guns, their heavy shells pounding at the stone faces and bodies that had stood untouched for centuries. But that didn't bring them down, the attackers escalated. Explosives were packed into the statues themselves, charges drilled into their chests, their bases, their structural weak points. Over days and then weeks, the Bamiyan Valley echoed with explosions. Each blast ripped more of the ancient figures away, sending clouds of dust and fragments of history crashing to the valley floor. Locals watched as pieces of the Buddhas that had outlived countless rulers were reduced to rubble by men who had been in power only a short time. When it was over, the silence was almost worse than the blasts. Where two immense guardians had stood for over a millennium and a half, there were now only gaping voids. Vast empty cavities carved into the cliff face. The world reacted with shock and outrage. Leaders from all over, including Muslim-majority countries like Iran and Pakistan, condemned the destruction. UNESCO called it a crime against culture, an attack not just on Afghan heritage, but on the shared memory of humanity. Scholars and historians pointed out that this wasn't only about statues. It was about wiping away visible proof of Afghanistan's role in the ancient networks of trade, art, and religion that had once tied continents together. The scars remain. If you visit Bamiyan today, you won't see the Buddhas, but you will see where they were, their absence carved into the cliffs like missing teeth in a monumental smile. Attempts to rebuild or restore them have stalled again and again, blocked by political upheaval, instability, lack of funding, debates over whether reconstruction would honor the past or further erase it. The empty niches themselves have become symbols, reminders of what can be lost in a moment of ideological fury. When the Taliban returned to power in 2021, old fears flared up once more. People around the world began asking what other relics might be at risk, what other fragile pieces of history would be silenced. The destruction of the Bamiyan Buddhas was never just about stone. It was about erasing stories, identities, and connections that stretch back centuries. The statues are gone, ground into dust and debris, but their story lingers, taught in classrooms, whispered in documentaries, and remembered by those who saw them with their own eyes. They stand now only in photographs, memories, and the conscience of a world that watched them disappear. The fall of the Bamiyan Buddhas is a harsh reminder how quickly centuries of history can vanish in a storm of violence and ideology. Monumental figures that survived time itself were taken down in a matter of days. Their destruction shows that fragility doesn't just belong to ancient stone, it belongs to cultures, to memory, and to people who can disappear just as quickly, leaving behind only questions and empty spaces where something irreplaceable once stood. On the night of May 16, 2023, a woman in Monroe, Ohio, was fast asleep when her phone jolted her awake. On the other end was her partner, calling from work with a tight, urgent tone she had never heard before. Their home security system allowed him to watch the cameras in real time, and what he was seeing made his blood run cold. "Who's outside the house? Who is that by the car?" he asked. Still half asleep and confused, she stumbled out of bed, padded through the dark, quiet rooms, and opened the surveillance app on her phone. Instantly, any trace of sleep disappeared. On the screen was a stranger in her driveway, standing right next to her car like he belonged there. Out in the neighborhood, that same moment, a soft orange glow began to flicker where there should have only been darkness. Neighbors looked out from bedroom windows, trying to understand why the night suddenly looked like it was catching fire. Someone dialed 911. By the time Monroe officers arrived, the front end of her vehicle was fully engulfed, flames roaring up from the engine bay and turning the driveway into a wall of heat and smoke. One officer rushed to the front door and found the homeowner barefoot and shaken, staring at the burning car as if her brain couldn't catch up to what her eyes were seeing. He guided her away from the flames and quickly asked the most important question: "Is anyone else inside?" She managed to say no, just her cat was in the house. The officer assured her that firefighters were already working on the blaze. For now, he needed to understand how this started and who had been lurking outside her home only minutes earlier.
Tell me, what's going on? And who's all in the house? Nobody?
No, just my bird and my two cats.
Okay, well, they're taking care of that. Let's take care of you real quick, okay? It's just you by yourself, so.
I was dead asleep.
Hands still trembling, she told him what her partner had seen on the cameras and what she herself had watched in full on the live feed.
Dead asleep.
Yeah?
And he said, "Who's outside? We've got cameras on the house." He said, "Who's outside?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Who's the man that put something on her car?" Because he's at work, and I guess he notified him that somebody was outside.
A man had walked directly up to her car with purpose, not hesitation. The footage showed him clearly. Light-colored sweatpants, dark shirt, gloves, hat, mask. He carried a small box-shaped object and set it carefully on the vehicle, like someone placing equipment exactly where it needed to be. Then he walked away, only to return with another object, something like a cover or shield, with a thin wire or fuse protruding from it. The camera caught him leaning in, flicking a lighter and calmly igniting the fuse before turning his back and disappearing into the darkness. Seconds later, flames erupted across the front of the car, standing in the cool night air as sirens wailed closer. She described every detail she could remember. The officer asked to see the video, and she held out her phone, her fingers shaking as he watched the stranger's movements frame by frame. Firefighters managed to put the blaze out before it spread to the house, but the car itself was destroyed. Officers asked her to email them the footage so investigators would have a copy. At the same time, they knew they couldn't just stand in the glow of the burned vehicle. Somewhere nearby, the man in the video was likely still out there.
Forward that to my email address somehow. Do you know how to do that?
I'll see if I can figure it. I'm not.
Okay. So your video, where did it show him walk off to? Do you know?
It looked like he just came this way.
The suspect was just last seen.
Using the direction he walked on camera as a rough guide, officers began sweeping the surrounding streets. Some moved on foot with flashlights, scanning yards and driveways. Others cruised slowly in patrol cars with their headlights low, looking for anything that felt out of place in the sleeping neighborhood. About 10 minutes later, not far from the victim's home, an officer noticed a vehicle parked on the side of a cul-de-sac. At that hour in that spot, it didn't fit. Inside sat a man alone in the driver's seat. When the officer approached and asked what he was doing, the man casually replied that he was just resting, claiming he was tired from a long drive. He said he'd flown in from New York, rented a car, and driven roughly 40 miles from the airport.
What's going on? Hey, what's going on?
Not much. Just wanted to rest up a little bit. I have a long drive.
Why are you doing it out here?
According to him, he was in town to visit a friend near Cincinnati but had grown too tired to continue, so he simply turned off the main road and picked a random neighborhood to sleep in. Maybe that story could have passed in the middle of the afternoon in a busy area, but parked in front of someone else's home at around 3 a.m., just minutes after a suspicious car fire nearby, it didn't add up. The man seemed overly chatty and nervous. When the officer mentioned they were investigating a vehicle that had just been intentionally set on fire, his reaction felt theatrical, repeating, "How do you even set a car on fire?" like he'd never heard of such a thing. He insisted he had nothing to do with it and apologized if anyone was uncomfortable with him parking there.
Ask is because there was somebody who set a car on fire.
Who set a car on fire?
Yes.
Like, what do you mean? Like, how do you set a car on fire?
They set the car on fire.
Officers asked if he had any weapons or dangerous items in the car. He said no. When they requested consent to search the vehicle, he agreed and confirmed it on camera. One officer stayed with him while another began to look through the interior. In the center console, they found a mask and a torch-style lighter, the kind capable of igniting a fuse quickly and cleanly. There was no luggage, no suitcase, nothing to suggest the traveler who had flown in from another state planned to stay a while. In the back seat, they noticed an impression in the upholstery. The outline is some thin box shape, very similar in size to the objects seen on the victim's car in the video. At the same time, a canine team had arrived at the burned vehicle. The dog picked up a scent near the car and began following it through the neighborhood, turning down sidewalks and side streets with growing focus. The trail led straight to the cul-de-sac where the man's car was parked. Under a nearby pine tree, officers found several plastic bags partially hidden. Inside were a hat, multiple pairs of gloves, and another mask, items that closely matched the clothing of the masked figure from the surveillance footage. Back at the patrol car, they placed the man, identified as Farhan, into the back seat and read him his rights. They showed him an image from the surveillance video, comparing the shoes, pants, and shirt to what he was wearing. He shook his head and insisted, "That's not me." He claimed he had simply picked the wrong place to nap and had no idea how those items ended up near his vehicle. Investigators soon discovered that a neighbor's camera had recorded his car entering the area at about 2:25 a.m. The victim's vehicle was set ablaze shortly before that. It's claimed that it had been parked there since midnight didn't match the recordings. With the canine track, the hidden clothing, the lighter and mask inside his car, the box-shaped imprint on the back seat, and the timeline captured by multiple cameras, officers believe they had more than enough to move forward. Farhan was transported to the station, while detectives requested warrants to search his phone and test the seized items for DNA and accelerant traces. He was ultimately charged with aggravated arson, breaking and entering, and possession of criminal tools. Under the law, he would remain innocent until proven guilty in court. But for the woman whose car had been turned into a fireball outside her own front door, one thing was painfully clear. That night, a single phone call, a functioning camera system, and a series of small details lining up likely prevented something worse. The blaze never reached her home. The flames were contained, and the man believed to be responsible was no longer sitting quietly in the shadows of her neighborhood, waiting for his next move. TikTok user Appalachia Decay lives in a farmhouse that carries 2 centuries of history in its bones. The house sits deep in the woods of West Virginia's portion of the Appalachian Mountains, the kind of place where fog clings to the trees and silence settles like dust. Inside, the floors creak, the walls breathe with the seasons, and the age of the building is something you can feel as soon as you step inside. She is used to the normal sounds of an old structure, the occasional draft, the soft pop of wood shifting, small noises that come and go with the temperature. One day, however, she starts hearing something different. The sound seems to be coming from the basement, low and irregular. At first, she writes it off as rats or other wildlife that might have slipped in through some unseen gap. Old houses tend to attract all kinds of uninvited guests, after all, but with each passing day, the noises feel less like random scratching and more like movement with intention. Something about the rhythm and weight behind the sounds make her uneasy. Eventually, curiosity overrides her hesitation. She grabs her phone, starts recording, and heads down the stairs to see for herself what's going on. As she moves carefully through the space, her camera picks up the stillness around her. Then, without warning, something happens that makes even the viewers at home tense up. One of the old basement doors suddenly jerks. The handle twists and rattles violently, as if someone on the other side is trying to yank it open. There is no gust of wind, no open window, no animal visible anywhere nearby. The motion is abrupt, forceful, and completely out of place, with a quiet space around it. What makes it even more disturbing is the detail she reveals afterward. That particular door does not lead to another room. It does not open into a hallway or stairwell. Behind it, there's only a solid wall. It is effectively a door to nowhere. There is physically no space for a person to stand directly behind it, pull on the handle like that. Knowing this turns a creepy moment into something much darker. Whatever caused that violent jerk is not something that fits into a normal explanation.
So these are the steps that lead out. I don't know what that is, but if you look, it's been sealed from the inside and the outside.
Appalachia Decay says she still has no real answer for what she captured that day. She would like to believe it was just the house settling in some bizarre, coincidental way, but the suddenness of the movement and the fact that the door hides nothing behind it makes that hard to accept. Since then, she has chosen not to take any chances. The basement door stays firmly closed, and she has become much more cautious walking through the parts of the home she once breezed through without a second thought. For her, the idea that something unseen might be active behind a door that should not be open at all is a chilling reminder how much remains unexplained in these mountains. Out here, isolation is part of everyday life, and sometimes so are the things that come with it. On September 6, 2019, a security camera in Anchorage, Alaska, captured what looked like any other late-night stop. A pickup truck rolled into the parking lot of a small shop. Out stepped 48-year-old Brian Smith and a woman named Valerie, 2 figures walking casually toward the entrance to grab drinks. Nothing about the scene seemed unusual. What the camera couldn't see, and what Valerie herself had no way of knowing, was that beneath the trunk's cover lay the body of another woman who had died the day before. The person walking beside her was not just a stranger offering a ride in the rain. He was a man whose secrets would soon place him among Alaska's most unsettling predators. Hours earlier, the night had started out almost painfully ordinary. Brian had a drink at home, then decided to go for a drive through Anchorage. Behind a grocery store near Gamble Street and East 13th Avenue, he spotted Valerie, 52 years old, homeless at the time and living out of a tent. She stood in the rain, cold and tired. Brian pulled up and rolled down his window. "It's raining. Do you want to ride around with me?" he asked. Grateful for warmth and a dry seat, Valerie agreed, climbing into the truck without realizing that she was stepping into the orbit with someone already connected to terrible violence. For a while, nothing about the ride felt threatening. They cruised through the city, talking, listening to music. Brian even drove toward the airport so they could watch planes taking off into the night sky. For Valerie, it might have felt like a brief break from the harshness of sleeping outside, a stranger showing an unusual amount of kindness. For Brian, it was another night where he believed he had total control over the narrative. Around 2 a.m., he pulled into a gas station to use an ATM and grab snacks, leaving Valerie alone inside the truck. While she waited, her phone slipped onto the floor. She leaned down to retrieve it and felt around under the seat. Her fingers brushed not one phone, but 2. She picked them up, and for a split second, a chill ran through her. Something felt wrong in a way she couldn't explain, the kind of instinctive warning that makes your stomach tighten before your mind understands why. She kept one of the phones, assuming it was hers, and sat back up as Brian returned with drinks. The night went on. Eventually, he dropped her off and drove away. Valerie headed back to her tent, exhausted but unaware that the phone in her pocket was about to expose something far darker than a simple mix-up. Later, when she finally checked her pockets, she realized the phone she had taken wasn't hers. The lock screen image was different. The contacts were unfamiliar. The layout felt off. Curious and uneasy, she started exploring the device, trying to figure out whose phone she had accidentally picked up. That was when she saw it, a folder with a name that included the word homicide in a hotel in Midtown Anchorage. Curiosity and dread pulled her deeper. She opened it. On the screen, a hotel room appeared. A woman with long dark hair. A man's voice behind the camera, calm and almost theatrical, narrating what he was doing as he inflicted suffering you couldn't mistake for anything staged. There were no credits, no editing, no music, just raw, horrifying footage. He spoke as if filming a twisted movie, providing commentary as the woman struggled. Valerie realized, sick to her stomach, that she was not watching a scene from a film. She was watching a real attack, recorded step by step. She kept scrolling, more images, more short clips, all showing the same woman in distress, the same room, the same voice. The folder's title listed the hotel and the city outright, like a confession stored in the open, and then another realization landed like a punch. That voice was familiar. She had heard it hours earlier, inches away, coming from the driver's seat of Brian's truck. Overwhelmed with fear, Valerie didn't rush to the nearest police station. Instead, she did what many people do when they feel completely outmatched by something horrifying. They disappeared. For days, she stayed hidden in the woods, barely leaving her tent. Every rustle of leaves sounded like footsteps. Every passing engine made her wonder if Brian had realized his phone was gone and was now hunting for her. In that makeshift hiding place, she replayed everything in her mind. The rain, the drive, how relaxed he seemed, the calm voice from the footage. Meanwhile, the idea that he could be out driving around Anchorage as though nothing had happened was almost unbearable. Eventually, fear gave way to a different kind of resolve. Valerie decided she couldn't carry this alone. She brought the phone and its SD card to the Anchorage Police Department and told them what she had seen. Detectives loaded the card onto their systems and began reviewing the contents. Even for seasoned investigators, the material was almost too much to handle. One of them later described it as the worst thing he had ever watched happen to another human being. The woman in the video was soon identified as 30-year-old Kathleen Jo Henry. The man's voice carried a distinctive mix of English and South African or Dutch accent, calmly describing what he was doing to her as if he were proud of it. One detective recognized that accent. It reminded him of a suspect's voice from an earlier case. The name that surfaced was Brian Stephen Smith. From that moment, the investigation accelerated. Hotel records showed that Brian had rented a room at a Midtown Marriott on September 4th, 2019. The timestamps embedded in the videos matched his stay almost exactly. Around the same time, human remains with long dark hair had been found near mile 108 of the Seward Highway. Those remains were identified as Kathleen. Phone data placed Brian's device near that same stretch of road days after the hotel recording was made. A still image from the memory card showed Kathleen in the back of a pickup truck, one that matched Brian's vehicle. The SD card Valerie had slipped into her pocket by accident became the key that connected a hotel room, a highway, a truck, a voice, and a name. When investigators learned that Brian was out of state on vacation with his wife, they prepared to intercept him the moment his plane landed back in Alaska. He arrived expecting just another return home. Instead, detectives met him at an airport and escorted him straight into an interview room. At first, he talked about stolen cameras and break-ins, trying to claim that a missing SD card had been taken from his truck months earlier, but the detectives were already watching what he insisted was gone. They had his voice on recordings, his shoes, his truck, the hotel records, the cell data, and the remains on the highway. Piece by piece, as they confronted him with photos, timestamps, and the disturbing footage, the walls closed in. He repeated that he did not remember, that things were being twisted, but the card told a different story, one he had filmed himself. In the end, a single misplaced device exposed a double lie, a man who to most people looked like an ordinary neighbor on the surface, yet carried some of the darkest evidence imaginable in his own pocket. This next unsettling video comes from the channel D's Dark Adventures on YouTube. What starts out as a simple solo hike quickly turns into something out of a nightmare. Dee sets off along a secluded trail near the Appalachian Mountains, expecting nothing more than fresh air and quiet scenery. She has her camera rolling, talking to her viewers, and for a while, everything looks normal. But as she moves deeper into the woods, a sense of being watched begins to creep in. At first, it's small things, the feeling that something shifts in the trees when she walks, the faint impression that when she stops, So does whatever is out there. She notices the pattern. The sounds in the distance match her movements. When she walks, there is movement beside or behind her. When she freezes, the forest goes still. The deeper she goes along the narrow trail, the more obvious it becomes that she's not alone. It's as if something is pacing her, keeping just enough distance to stay out of sight, but close enough that she can feel its presence. Eventually, her unease grows too strong to ignore. She turns back, trying to get out of the woods and back to open ground as quickly as possible. But even after she escapes the tree line, the encounter is not truly over.
Yeah. Hi. Hi. Yep. Yep. I gotta get down. I can't go home. Please, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. What is that? No! The fuck is it? Dude, no! It looks like a person, man. But no person. It looks like a fucking person. Stop! That ain't a person. That ain't a person. Ah! It just keeps getting up and down, up and down. Stop! Fuck, I can't run. Ah! Somebody drive by, somebody drive by.
Later in the footage, her camera captures the moment her unseen follower reaches the edge of the trees. When you slow the clip down, you can make out a shape crouched low in the shadows. For a second, it stays hunched, almost blending into the undergrowth. Then it rises slowly onto two legs. The movement is deliberate, controlled, and deeply unnatural. This is not the way a typical animal stands and moves. It has the posture of something upright, something that knows how to balance on two limbs. Dee's panic in that moment is obvious. Her breathing is unsteady. Her voice shakes. Every word she manages to get out carries genuine fear. Even when she reaches more open ground, where there is distance between her and the trees, she cannot shake the feeling that something is still watching from just beyond the edge of her vision. And that might be the most unsettling part of all. The idea that whatever was stalking her is patient enough to wait, to watch, and to follow without needing to show itself fully. Encounters in the Appalachian region are often wrapped in mystery. Dense forests, hidden hollows, and wildlife that rarely reveals itself make it easy for stories to grow. But this does not feel like a simple misinterpretation of an animal or a trick of the light. The way the figure crouches and then stands, the timing of its movements, and the way it mirrors her path all suggest something far more deliberate. So what do you think was following Dee in this footage? A misidentified animal standing at a strange angle? A person hiding out in the woods for reasons of their own? Or something stranger? Something that understands how to use the tree line as a mask? What began as a quiet night inside a Florida hotel slowly twisted into something tense, confusing, and dangerously unpredictable. On the night of September 22, 2018, officers were dispatched after a call from a hotel employee reported a disturbing altercation between a couple staying on the property. The employee described shouting, panic, and a sudden confrontation that left her unsure what had actually happened behind the closed door of one particular room. When officers arrived, they quickly learned that whatever was going on was far from a simple misunderstanding. Inside the lobby, a manager pointed the officers toward the couple involved, a woman who seemed overwhelmed, lost, and clearly intoxicated, and a man who insisted he only wanted to gather his belongings and leave. From the moment the camera turned toward him, he repeated the same phrase, that he had been trying to walk away, that she had attacked him, pushed him, scratched him, even tried to choke him because she refused to let him go.
I've been trying to leave. She keeps pushing, strangling me, hitting me because she didn't want me to leave.
How are you guys related?
We have a child together.
All right. Are you
That's
married?
pretty much it. No.
Right.
That's why I
stay right here. Hello.
Hi.
Are you okay?
No, I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Well, why am I here? Why'd someone
I
call
don't
the police?
know. I think you need to leave. I don't know what's going on.
Leave.
We
I'm
came
here.
back. Honestly, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know what's going
all
on.
right.
We came back from the pool and
We had a great day, and then all of a sudden he just told me he was leaving and we're not supposed to check out till Monday morning. I don't know what's going on.
Do you think he's leaving to separate?
I don't know. I don't know
For
what's
just
going
temporary
on.
because you guys are fighting? Or?
I'm so embarrassed. I have no idea. You have to go.
Are there any...
When the officers entered the room to speak with the woman, the atmosphere shifted instantly. She was pacing, crying, stumbling through her words, insisting she had no idea why anyone called the police. Her story was shaky, tears mixed with fear, confusion, and embarrassment. She begged the officers not to let him walk out, not to separate them, not to ruin the weekend trip they had planned together. But nothing she said matched the calm, steady account he had just given.
She seems really intoxicated.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying to leave.
Okay, so
She gets very violent when that happens.
Can you break it down for me? What?
She had too much to drink. I asked her about 3 hours ago to stop drinking. And
5-5.
she didn't.
5-5.
And I'm trying to leave.
Salute, trying to meet the other half.
Are those... Is that from earlier?
It's fine. I
need yes or no questions. Is that from earlier?
It's
right here?
Oh, no, not this. That's old. That's old.
You said she was trying to strangle you and stuff like that?
She was just trying to keep me from leaving. Everything's fine. Can I just get my black backpack and leave?
No. Do you have ID on you?
Yeah.
Alright, can I see it? You guys have a kid together?
Yes, sir. Tomorrow's her birthday.
Do you have ID on you?
I don't know where it is. He had my wallet earlier. I don't know where anything is. We came back from the pool. I don't know where anything is.
60, we're in the back by the pool. Do you have her ID?
I don't.
Oh, okay. No.
It may be in her backpack in one of the side pouches, or it could be in one of those blue tote bags.
Okay.
Please, just don't let him leave. He's so drunk.
He's not leaving.
Don't. I don't know.
Where's your wallet?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't know.
I need you to...
Please don't let him leave. I don't know what's going on.
He's not leaving.
We just came back from hanging out at a pool like a couple blocks away, and then all of a sudden he came back in here and told me he was leaving
What's your
We're
first
not
name?
supposed to leave till Monday.
What's your first name?
Okay, here, I'll write it down.
No, just tell me.
Within my friend Cascade.
M? Alright, do me a favor. Lean your head that way so I can see the other side of your neck. The back of your... Put your arms out like this. Turn the other way. Put your hands flat, put your fingers out.
The more she talked, the more her words spiraled into pleading, into promises, into begging the officers not to take him away, then begging them not to let him take her belongings, then begging them not to arrest her. But the officers had already seen enough. The signs of a domestic struggle were clear. Marks on his neck, his story consistent, her intoxication obvious. The law in cases like this is strict. Probable cause is not a debate, and once it exists, the officers have no choice.
I swear to God, on my 2-year-old daughter's life, I never touched him.
Okay. Do you have any marks? Can you put your hands up? Any marks?
Come here. I didn't. I swear to God, on my life.
I need your phone number.
I don't want him to leave. Because my birthday is tomorrow. We're here for my.
I need your phone number. Can I have your phone number, please?
Is he trying to tell you that I put my hands on him? Because I swear to God, on my life, I didn't try to.
Your phone number, please. Focus. I'm ready to write it down.
I swear to God, if y'all put me in jail for something I didn't do, I
have a parentheses. I'm ready.
I swear to God on my life, I never touched him in this. This is not.
Quickly.
This is.
Yeah. She's going to jail tonight for domestic battery. She has to.
Why?
All right.
Why?
Because we have probable cause.
No. Listen,
She is. It is what it is. If you cause any trouble, you're gonna go too. All right?
Of course.
It is what it is. So stay here, chill.
Chips all over. It's. No, I did not touch him. Please don't put me in jail.
You resist, that's gonna be an extra charge.
I didn't touch him. I didn't touch him. Please, this room is in my name. Please.
She begged them not to take her to jail, begged them to let her leave on her own, begged them to think about her job, her flight home, her birthday the next day, her clothes, her purse, her phone, her makeup, anything that might convince them to stop. But the body cam footage captured the harsh reality. Once the cuffs click, there is no undoing the moment.
What?
We have probable cause of
Swear to God, I never touched him. I swear to God, I never touched him. We're supposed to be here. We're supposed to fly out on Tuesday.
Where's your purse?
I swear to God, my life. Are you really arresting me right now?
Where's your purse?
Can you look that way real quick? I have to double lock
So
these
you
so
can
we
get your
don't.
purse and stuff. Where's your stuff that you want to take with you?
Got to be kidding me. What is going on? It is Saturday night. My birthday is tomorrow.
Okay, we're asking you, where's the stuff you want to take
Oh
with
God.
you? Is there a purse you want to take with
What
you?
happens now? What happens now? Is he? Oh my God. Can he tell you that Can he tell you right now he doesn't want me arrested?
It's not up to him.
It's up to y'all.
No, it's the state of Florida. Okay, let's
Hold
grab
on,
your stuff.
Hold on.
Where's your purse and stuff that you want to take
Hold on.
with
That's
you?
my phone right there on the bed.
You want to take your phone?
Yes.
What else
Are
do you
you
want to take?
kidding me right now? I don't even have underwear or bra on.
You're gonna get some flip-flops.
Oh my God, I didn't touch him. I swear to God on my life, I didn't touch him.
Is there a purse or a wallet you want to take?
Yes.
Where is it at?
Yes, it's in my purse
Hey,
right
where is
there
it?
in
Where
my
is it?
backpack. I'm sorry.
By the time they led her into the hallway toward the elevator, the room behind her felt quiet, the kind of silence that settles after something breaks. And as the hotel hallway swallowed their voices, the body cam captured a brutal, unsettling truth. Sometimes the scariest moments aren't the ones filled with violence or screams. Sometimes they're the ones where everything unravels slowly, piece by piece, until a life spins out in real time, on camera, with no way to take it back. Cody had lived on his property for 22 years. For more than 2 decades, nothing out of the ordinary had ever happened there. The land was familiar, the routines were the same, and the yard was just a yard. Nothing hidden, nothing strange. That's why what he found one afternoon while mowing the grass disturbed him so much. As he pushed the mower across a section he had cut 1,000 times before, he noticed something new. Embedded in the otherwise even lawn was a circular patch of flattened grass. It was gentle, almost neat, as if something had pressed down in a perfect ring.
So I was mowing the yard yesterday and seen this little square patch of grass. It's never been here before. It's dead. When I drove over it, it kind of sank. And I came over here with a shovel and tapped on it. Let me get a little closer. It's some kind of door. I've been here 22 years and this has never been here before. So I really don't know what to think about it. But about 1944, there was a old cabin here that burnt down, and it may be some kind of well or storm cellar or something. I may dig it up if enough people show any kind of interest in it and want to know what it is.
Curiosity got the better of him. He returned later with tools and began peeling back the grass inside the circle. Beneath the surface, he uncovered something solid and metallic. It was a hidden door made of heavy metal and set deep into the ground, completely concealed until the grass above it thinned just enough to give it away.
It wasn't easy, but it's open. I don't know if it's an old septic or an old well. It's way out here in the field away from everything, but I had about a 15-foot stick of conduit. I stuck it down in there and couldn't touch the bottom. And I do have an old pump. I'm gonna stick in there and pump all the water out and see what in the world is down there. There's no telling, as long as it ain't an old septic. I see what y'all think. If anybody knows, let me know. But that's what it was. Had no idea it was here, so.
What lay beneath looked like an old shaft. It could have been an unused well, an abandoned storm shelter, or something else entirely. He grabbed a long metal rod, hoping to gauge how deep the structure went. He lowered it down, waiting for the clink of metal against stone or packed earth. That sound never came. No matter how far he fed the rod into the darkness, he could not reach the bottom. The depth remained unknown, an open throat leading into the ground. If that had been the end of it, the discovery alone would have been unsettling. But later that evening, after the door was closed again, and Cody had gone back inside, strange noises began echoing from beneath the house. It sounded like something was moving through unseen spaces below his door, shifting or dragging in areas that should have been solid. The timing was too perfect to ignore. He grabbed his camera and went down into the basement, hoping to catch evidence of what's going on. Down there, among the pipes and support beams, the sound seemed closer, more personal, as if whatever was making them was only a few feet away, but on the other side of the concrete. What he captured next on video was not just unnerving, it was genuinely terrifying. The exact details of what he saw are left to the footage itself, but the implication is clear. Something down there did not want to be disturbed. Now, the obvious question sets heavy in his mind. Could whatever he witnessed have come from that hidden structure in the yard? Is the underground chamber connected to a much larger network? Something that had been sealed away and silently waiting for years, maybe decades, beneath his feet? Or is this all a chain of coincidences and misinterpretations piled on top of each other, given weight only because of that mysterious metal door? Let me know what you think. Coincidence, overactive imagination, or something that should never have been uncovered at all? Christina, 44, and her husband, Yanel, 57, lived a quiet, steady life in the town of Camaragaby, Brazil. They weren't rich, but they were comfortable. They had a modest home, enough to hire a cleaner, and enough to stay mostly to themselves. It was the kind of life where you might assume you were safe simply because you never caused trouble for anyone. But safety can shatter when the wrong piece of information drifts into the wrong ears. In late 2017, Christina received a large compensation payout after an accident. The money was significant, life-changing for the couple, but also dangerously attractive to people driven by greed. One day, their cleaner mentioned the payout in passing to her grandson. It seemed like harmless conversation. She didn't realize that this one casual comment would echo out of her household, move from person to person, and eventually reach two men who saw it as an opportunity, not a tragedy. Those men were 29-year-old Daniel Santos and 25-year-old Carlos Alberto. To them, the idea was simple and sinister. If the couple had that much money, it had to be hidden somewhere inside the house. Instead of letting the thought go, they started building a plan around it. They watched the couple's routines, noted when they came and went, and imagined a safe full of cash waiting just behind a wall or beneath a floorboard. They recruited 3 teenage accomplices, turning a rumor into a 5-person robbery team. This wasn't an impulsive smash and grab. It was deliberate and calculated, built on the belief that this quiet middle-class couple was sitting on a fortune. On the night of January 7th, 2018, the plan became reality. For Christina and Yanel, it was just another evening at home, the kind where you lock the door, settle in, and assume the night will pass uneventfully. They had no way to know that outside, 5 intruders were preparing to tear their lives apart. The front door burst open. There was no warning, no time to call for help. The gang stormed in, shouting, overpowering them, tying their hands, and dragging them into the backyard, using the walls and darkness as a shield from prying eyes. While one attacker kept watch over the terrified couple, the others ransacked the house, tearing through drawers, closets, cabinets, anything that might conceal a hidden stash. But there was no safe, no bundles of cash tucked away. The compensation money Christine had received was controlled through banks and institutions, not stored in a box at home. Even when the intruders found nothing, they didn't believe it. Their frustration boiled over with violence. They demanded to know where the money was. Christina and Yanel repeated the truth over and over. There was no hidden fortune. To the attackers, it sounded like defiance. The threats grew uglier. The couple was beaten, their fear used as leverage. Still, there was nothing to hand over. When the gang couldn't get what they wanted, they escalated in a way that investigators later described as almost unimaginable. They assaulted Christina while forcing Yanel to watch, trying to break him by using cruelty against the person he loved most. Even under unbearable pressure, he had nothing more to reveal. He couldn't point them to money that didn't exist. The gang convinced themselves they were being lied to, and their brutality deepened. Eventually, they crossed a line that turned robbery into something far worse. They inflicted injuries on Christina that she could not survive, ending her life in front of her husband, using her final moments as another twisted attempt to force a confession that never came. With Christina gone, they turned their full attention to Yanel. He was beaten, threatened, and pushed again and again to disclose the location of wealth that wasn't real. Hours passed in this nightmare. Finally, when it sank that there was no secret stash, no hidden safe, they chose to erase the only witnesses. They killed him too. In the backyard, they dug a shallow grave, placed both bodies inside, attempted to burn them, then covered the disturbed soil as best they could. After that, they walked away with whatever valuables they could carry, a car, some possessions, and left believing they had committed a perfect crime. For 2 days, the house sat quiet, too quiet. Neighbors noticed that the couple hadn't been seen. Their home, normally showing some sign of life, remained still and silent. Concern grew until someone finally contacted the authorities. Around the same time, police received an anonymous tip naming Daniel Santos and Carlos Alberto as being involved in something terrible at the house. Officers arrived, began investigating, and soon uncovered the shallow grave in the yard. Within a short time, all 5 members of the group were tracked down and arrested. They were found with stolen belongings, the couple's car and weapons, a shotgun and a handgun. During questioning, the teenage accomplices broke first, describing the events of that night in chilling detail. One detective called it one of the most senseless and cruel cases he had ever worked on. The teenagers received the maximum possible punishment under Brazilian law for minors, 3 years in juvenile detention. Details of the adult sentences were less clear publicly, but something disturbing emerged. A leaked prison video showed Daniel and Carlos being forced by other inmates to humiliate themselves on camera, a grim sign of how despised their crime was, even among hardened offenders. None of the attackers ever showed real remorse. Not in court, not during interrogations, not after sentencing. Cristina and Yano had lived quietly, hurt no one, and never flaunted their small blessings. They were not wealthy moguls, just a couple trying to rebuild their lives after hardship, only to have strangers invade their home, fueled by greed and a rumor about money no one could touch. Their story is a heavy reminder how a single careless comment, one person casually talking about someone else's compensation, can snowball into a tragedy no one imagined, leaving behind a home, a neighborhood, and a family forever changed. What unfolded in Miami-Dade on September 16, 2025 began like so many real-world nightmares, with frantic voices pouring into 911 dispatch. Call after call came from terrified residents in the Goulds neighborhood, each describing the same chilling scene: a man inside a gray Honda Odyssey pointing a gun at random people near a small grocery store. He wasn't shouting demands. He wasn't robbing anyone. He was simply displaying the weapon, aiming it out the window at anyone who crossed his path, creating a wave of fear that spread across the block surrounding Southwest 216th Street and 120th Avenue.
Sheriff's Office, what is the address of your emergency?
Yes, 21630 Southwest 120 Avenue, 216th Street. There's a guy in a Honda van at Davis Grocery. There's a guy at
21630 Southwest 122 Avenue. Is this a house apartment?
Yes, 21630 Southwest 120 Avenue, 216 Davis Grocery. There's a guy in a Honda. There's a Cuban guy in a Honda van up here, bagged up. He pulling a gun out on everybody. Please send the police. Hurry up now.
When the sergeant arrived on scene, he quickly spotted the van that matched the caller's descriptions. He approached carefully, weapon drawn, using the angles of the roadway to limit exposure. The moment he reached shouting distance, he began issuing commands. Firm, clear orders for the driver to show his hands. Inside that van sat 44-year-old Jose Pineda Jr., and instead of complying, he responded with a bizarre, unsettling claim he didn't have any hands.
Let me see your hands! Let me see your hands!
I ain't got no hands!
Let me see your hands!
I ain't got no hands!
Before the sergeant could process the strange reply, the situation detonated. The air cracked with the first gunshots. Pineda opened fire from inside the vehicle, and the sergeant instinctively returned fire while retreating, moving backward toward a nearby truck for cover.
I ain't got no hands!
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Watch for crossfire! He's armed!
This is an armed subject, Davis Grocery, 216 and 122, item 315.
He's in the car! He's in the car! Where is he? Where is he? Hey, I got a subject down! Subject down! Subject down!
We have 315, dropping shots.
Subject down! Hey!
Grocery, 2163012.
Hey, clear that car! Santana, clear that car! Clear the car! Kick the gun! Cuff him!
Here's 1 so target 30, 200.
Cuff him! 300 QR. Get some cuffs on him! Right now!
Are you hear you?
Officers moved in quickly, securing the scene and calling for medical aid the moment it was safe. Paramedics attempted to stabilize Pineda, and he was transported to a nearby hospital, but the damage from the exchange was too severe. Shortly after arrival, he was pronounced gone. Remarkably, no deputies were hurt during the violent encounter. The vehicles, however, bore the marks of the shootout, bullet holes in doors, fenders, and windshields, a grim reminder of how close the incident came to ending differently. Now, as with every officer-involved shooting in Florida, the case has been handed over to state investigators who will analyze body cam recordings, witness accounts, and ballistic evidence to determine exactly how the confrontation unfolded, second by second. For the people who watched from doorways, car windows, and sidewalks, the morning became something they would never forget. A quiet neighborhood turned into the center of a gunfight because one man chose to terrorize strangers with a weapon. It was a reminder how quickly a normal day can twist into danger, and how seconds can decide whether an entire community walks away unharmed or not at all. The video that would later spread online doesn't begin with screaming or sirens. It starts almost casually. Laughter in the background, movement, a quiet street, the interior of a car, a familiar neighborhood. Then a man's voice fills the frame, angry and proud as he films himself, ranting to the camera like he's delivering a speech. He talks about people who don't know who they are, about how they are upset with him. He says his own name like a brand, repeating it as if he wants it burned into anyone who watches. While he performs for his phone, somewhere just out of frame, a woman is fighting for her safety in her life. That woman is 34-year-old Mariah Rosanna Samuels. For her, the morning of September 15th, 2025 begins like so many others, getting her young ones ready, going through the routines, grabbing a few quiet moments in her Jeep before heading off to work. Mariah was born on January 23, 1991 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Long before her name appeared in headlines, she was just Mariah, the warm, funny person everyone described as light in a room. Friends and family say she didn't just pass through people's lives, she left a mark. She was the coworker who checked in when you seemed off, the sister who listened without rushing you, the mother who showed up even when she was exhausted. At 34, she was proud of the life she had built. She worked hard as a pet groomer at a store in Fridley, and it wasn't just a job. Animals responded to her. Coworkers remembered how even nervous or reactive dogs would calm down in her hands. She turned long shifts into something bearable, cracking jokes, lifting moods, making the workplace feel less like work and more like a second home. Outside of her job, Mariah loved to travel. She'd been to Thailand, Mexico, Jamaica. Her social media was full of beaches, photos under foreign skies, and that wide smile everyone recognized. She lived fully, even while carrying the weight of responsibility as a mother. In the spring of 2025, someone who entered her life, 50-year-old David Eugene Wright. He had spent many years in federal prison on drug-related charges. Like many men in his position, he presented himself as changed, insisting he had learned from his mistakes and was ready to live differently. Whether they met through friends or chance, by May, they were officially a couple. At first, he seemed supportive and generous. He offered rides, helped with errands, showed interest in her children, brought flowers and gifts. To a single mother juggling work, home, and everything in between, that kind of attention can feel like relief. But slowly, what started as attention turned into surveillance. He learned exactly what time her job opened and when she arrived. He knew when her younger son got out of school and would time his drives to pass by right then. He figured out which days she went shopping, which nights she visited her sister. Her schedule became something he monitored, not something he respected. Her friends noticed the shift. The woman who used to flood her social media feed with travel photos and jokes began posting less. When they hung out, her phone would buzz constantly. She'd step away to answer, talking in a lowered voice, then return with a smile that didn't match the tension in her eyes. The relationship had crossed from caring into control. In late August, everything escalated. On August 26, 2025, David showed up unexpectedly at her back door. When she refused to let him in, he circled the house, testing doors and windows. A friend on the phone heard the rattling and the rising fear in Mariah's voice. Eventually, he forced his way inside. He damaged her phone and assaulted her, turning her own home into a place of terror. The friend, horrified, called emergency services while listening to the struggle. Mariah survived the incident, bruised and shaken, but she did exactly what the system tells survivors to do. She went to authorities, reported the attack, and obtained a protection order that same day. By August 29th, he had officially been served. The order told him to stay away from her, her children, her workplace, her home. On paper, she finally had a barrier between herself and the man who hurt her. For a brief period, it seemed like that barrier might hold. David went quiet. Mariah blocked him everywhere she could. The tension eased slightly. She started to feel a little less afraid, walk into her car, a little less compelled to constantly scan every passing vehicle. But control is not something men like David give up easily. Slowly, the violations began. Messages, attempts to contact her, ways of pressing against the boundaries the law had put up. Mariah didn't stay silent about it. She talked openly about what she had experienced, about how slow and fragile the system felt compared to the danger she lived with every day. In one of her last posts, She captured the reality so many victims understand. A piece of paper cannot physically stop someone who has already decided they own you. Then came that morning in September at around 7:50 a.m. as she sat in her Jeep in the 1400 block of Russell Avenue North, preparing to leave for work. David arrived on a stolen bicycle. He had once again used her routines against her, arriving at the exact time he knew she would be in her car. Neighbors later told officers they heard a series of sharp cracks, the kind of sound that makes you freeze in place. When they looked outside, they saw a scene they would never forget. When police arrived, they found Mariah partly inside her Jeep, the door open, her routine shattered in an instant. Paramedics did everything they could, but at 8:09 a.m., she was pronounced gone. The joy, the trips, the laughter with animals at work, the light she brought into other people's days, all of it ended in seconds in her own driveway. The bicycle David used was found abandoned a few blocks away, with a Sprint still on it. Within hours, law enforcement agencies across the region had his face, his history, and his new crimes circulating in briefing rooms. U.S. Marshals joined the search. He checked into a motel under a false name, but a manager recognized the description from news reports and called police. 17 officers surrounded the building. When they entered his room around 3 in the morning, he was sitting on the bed with his hands raised, calm and resigned. He told them he knew they would find him. His first question was chilling. Did she suffer? In the aftermath, investigators traced his path, old protection orders from other women, previous violence, a long pattern that in hindsight looked like a trail of warnings. Mariah had done everything she was supposed to do. She reported the abuse, she documented the violations, she got the protection order, she spoke out. Her family, co-workers, and community gathered for a vigil outside her home on Russell Avenue. They held candles, shared stories, and repeated the same message. Mariah's life mattered, and the system had failed to protect her. She was not just a case number or a headline. She was a mother, a traveler, a worker who calmed frightened animals and brightened tired co-workers' days. She tried to save herself using the tools she was given, and still it wasn't enough. Her story now stands as both a tribute and a warning. Love should never feel like tracking. Attention should never feel like surveillance. And when someone says they are not safe, when they go to court, file papers, and still feel hunted, cannot be treated as just another document in a stack. For Mariah, the system moved too slowly. For those who hear her story now, the question is whether they will listen to the next person who says, "I'm scared," before it's too late. A disturbing tragedy unfolded at a zoo in João Pessoa, Brazil, when a 19-year-old named Gerson de Melo Machado climbed a 20-foot barrier and slipped into the lion enclosure, chasing a dangerous fantasy he had carried for years. Witnesses said he managed to get over the wire-topped fence and use a tree inside the habitat to climb down, completely unnoticed at first, but the instant he touched the ground, horrified visitors watched as the lioness Leona noticed the intruder and immediately sprinted toward the base of the tree. As Machado attempted to descend, she lunged with overwhelming force, dragging him out of sight behind a wall. For a moment, the teenager staggered back into view as if trying to escape, but Leona struck a second time, and this time there was no getting away.
Esse cara vai aparecer nada, eu vou aparecer.
Porra nenhuma, mano. Olha espremendo lá os pés dele lá.
Meu Deus, desceu. Ai, meu Deus, olha. Olha, meu. Ai, meu Deus, pra que subiu ali?
Como é que é? Olha,
Zoo staff and onlookers could only watch, powerless to intervene. Machado was pronounced dead shortly afterward. According to Brazilian news sources, the young man had a long history of severe mental health struggles. He'd been diagnosed with schizophrenia as a child, institutionalized, and later incarcerated. His fixation on taming lions wasn't new. He had once attempted to hide in the landing gear of a plane traveling to Africa, hoping to reach big cat trainers there, but authorities intercepted him and placed him under protective supervision. The zoo confirmed the fatal incident and stressed that the lioness was not at fault. Leona was evaluated immediately after the attack and kept under close observation due to extreme stress from the encounter. Despite the violent nature of what happened, staff emphasized that she showed no abnormal aggression outside of the event and would not be euthanized. Officials stated that the standard protocol in situations like this involves monitoring the animal closely, assessing its behavior, and providing specialized care, exactly what was being done. The facility was shut down immediately following the attack and remained closed the next day as investigators worked to understand how the teenager managed to breach multiple safety barriers. On October 11, 2025, at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport in Texas, a refueling technician was completing a routine maintenance on an American Eagle jet when disaster nearly struck. Surveillance video shows the worker disconnecting the fuel hose while it was still under high pressure. Within seconds, the pressurized line whipped violently out of control, spewing jet fuel across the tarmac. One spark, a single static discharge, could have turned the scene into an inferno. Emergency crews rushed in within minutes, shutting down the line and containing the spill before ignition could occur. No one was hurt, and the aircraft was cleared for service later that day. But the near miss serves as a stark reminder of the dangers faced by aviation workers daily. Something as routine as refueling becomes a high-stakes task when pressure, temperature, and flammable vapors are involved. Airports operate under some of the world's strictest safety protocols, but as this footage proves, even a moment's lapse can put hundreds of lives at risk. This chilling footage was taken near Table Rock Airport in Golden, Missouri on December 30th, 2021. It shows a small J&J ultralight Sea-Wing trike aircraft taking off under clear skies. The pilot, a hobbyist flying alone, climbs steeply after takeoff, far steeper than standard procedure. Seconds later, the aircraft stalls midair. Its nose dips sharply and the craft spirals downward, vanishing behind a tree line. Moments later, a plume of smoke appears. The pilot was later confirmed to be unlicensed, operating the ultralight without formal certification. Investigators concluded he'd executed an abrupt climb that caused the lightweight craft to lose lift, enter a stall, and crash into a nearby house. Tragically, he didn't survive, though nobody on the ground was hurt. The wreckage emphasized how deceptive ultralight aircraft can be, easy to assemble, yet unforgiving when mishandled. This clip, while difficult to watch, stands as a sobering lesson in respecting aviation safety at every level. On December 19th, in the Frunzensky district of northern Russia, a construction mishap turned an ordinary morning into a scene of destruction. A Mitsubishi Fuso crane driver forgot to lower the boom before driving through a residential area, and the raised arm struck a brick archway with full force. The entire structure collapsed instantly, sending tons of debris crashing down onto a parked Subaru Outback. The car was nearly crushed, flat beneath the rubble, its windshield shattered and its frame bent beyond repair. In a remarkable stroke of luck, the driver of the Subaru managed to jump out just seconds before the impact, narrowly escaping death. Rescue teams and traffic inspectors arrived to clear the debris and assess the damage. Officials confirmed that no one was killed or seriously injured, though the accident caused significant property damage. It serves as a powerful reminder that even small lapses in safety procedures, something as simple as lowering a crane arm, can have catastrophic results in an instant.
She wants to cry. Hey. Ouch. Ronnie, get this down. These kids are smart. They know what white people do.
To close this collection, here's a moment that's both eerie and oddly innocent. It happened in September 2025 at a rural village school in Laos. A TikToker named Christy had arrived to visit the small school, hoping to film a wholesome cultural exchange. But what she didn't expect was the reaction she received. As soon as the children saw her, they screamed, ran out of classrooms, and hid behind desks, blackboards, and even books. Some peeked out nervously, others vanished entirely from sight. It wasn't fear of strangers, it was something deeper. According to locals, the remote village rarely sees outsiders, and for many of these young ones, Christy may have been the first foreigner they'd ever seen. scene. In Lao folklore, pale skin is sometimes associated with spirits or ghosts, so to them, the visitor must have seemed supernatural. What began as a light-hearted visit turned into an unexpected cultural encounter, revealing how even in a hyper-connected world, there are still places untouched by globalization, where one person's curiosity can feel like another's apparition. Chaos nearly unfolded at the world's busiest airport when police arrested a man armed with a semi-automatic rifle inside Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. It was just before 10 a.m. on a Monday morning when 49-year-old Billy Joe Cagle, a resident of Cartersville, Georgia, was spotted wandering through the crowded terminals. Thousands of passengers filled the concourse, families returning home, business travelers racing to catch flights, completely unaware that an armed individual was among them. According to authorities, the incident began hours earlier when Cagle's own family alerted local police. They had seen him streaming live on social media, openly claiming he was on his way to the Atlanta airport and threatening to, in his own words, shoot it up. His relatives reported that he appeared agitated, unstable, and in possession of what they described as an assault-style weapon. The Cartersville Police Department immediately relayed the information to Atlanta authorities, triggering a rapid, coordinated response. Officers swarmed the airport, quietly scanning for Cagle before panic could spread. Within minutes, they located him near one of the terminals, carrying a semi-automatic firearm.
It's 2025. How are you? How did you get? What are your reasons at the airport right now?
What now?
Why are you at the airport?
Oh, I'm just here. What I heard?
What kind of car you drive?
Huh?
What kind of car do you drive?
I got dropped off.
You got dropped off. Okay, we just looking. We just have a situation going on.
Oh, okay. You're welcome.
Yeah, you girls have a dog. Officer Daniels. Yeah, pleasure. Billy?
Yes, ma'am.
16 radio. Is the guy named Billy?
That's Billy.
Alright, you have hands. Put your hands behind your back, sir. Put your hands behind your back.
You like to have one of those?
Give me my phone. No. It's filming. It's filming. Give me my phone. What did I hurt? What did I hurt? It's my phone. Oh, put it up.
Just show us one more detail and fit in the description. We're gonna head back to the precinct to confirm.
He was detained without any shots being fired. Atlanta Police Chief Darren Shearbaum later confirmed the arrest at a press conference, stating that the family's quick decision to contact police likely prevented a mass tragedy. Hartsfield-Jackson International, which handles over 108 million passengers annually, remained on high alert for hours after the arrest as officers swept the area for any possible secondary threats. Passengers described a tense atmosphere with heavily armed police moving quickly but calmly through the terminal. Thankfully, no one was injured. As of now, Cagle faces multiple federal and state charges, including making terroristic threats and carrying a firearm in a restricted area. Authorities continue to investigate what led him to make such alarming statements online. His arrest serves as a stark reminder that in today's digital world, warnings shared on social media can mean the difference between tragedy and prevention. In a remote area of India, chaos erupted when an elephant, reportedly agitated and confused, began charging toward an excavator operating near a plantation. Cell phone footage shows the massive animal trumpeting and sprinting forward as the machine's operator panics. Instead of retreating, the driver swings the excavator's heavy arm directly at the elephant, striking its head and torso repeatedly in a brutal confrontation. Onlookers can be heard shouting in fear as the animal stumbles backward, visibly injured and disoriented. Reports later revealed that the elephant had likely wandered close to human activity after consuming fermented fruits or alcohol discarded nearby, a common but dangerous occurrence that can alter an elephant's behavior. Fortunately, no humans were harmed, but the animal suffered deep bruising and possible skull trauma. Authorities intervened shortly after, confiscating the machine and detaining the operator for investigation. Wildlife officials later guided the injured elephant back into the forest for medical observation. The disturbing encounter reignited debate across India about habitat destruction and the consequences of human expansion into wildlife territory. Two men are climbing a ladder before the unthinkable transpired. It's a tense pursuit on a busy Wisconsin highway. Officers are in pursuit of a single suspect flying down the interstate, weaving in and out of lanes with reckless speed. Traffic's all backed up. He's taking the shoulder. One trooper calls out over the radio.
36 Central, I'm jumping in. I'm lead car.
36 lead car, 1207.
He's taking the shoulder. He's doing a U-turn. We'll stop him.
Shoulder, U-turn, we'll stop him. All follow unit 2, clear, foot back around.
Okay, he's grabbing something out of the passenger seat. He's a single occupant, speed 200. Still left lane, approach the volatile.
You're grabbing something out of the front seat, speed 100 mile an hour, left lane, 12 away.
Now in the right lane, speed 105. Look volatile.
Right lane, speed 105.
The suspect's vehicle swerves, pulling a U-turn directly into oncoming traffic.
Eastbound wrong way, eastbound wrong way.
At speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour, the driver blasts down the wrong side of the highway.
Westbound in the eastbound lanes coming up to Fowlerville. Westbound in the eastbound lanes coming up to Fowlerville. 4012, get on that ramp and block it off. Sun is clear, westbound eastbound lanes.
Officers rushed to block off exit ramps, trying to prevent a catastrophic head-on collision.
Eastbound left lane. Going the wrong way, getting off at Fowlerville now.
Moments later, the driver jerks off the road, speeding through the grass before finally losing control. His vehicle slides to a stop near the shoulder. Officers sprint in, weapons drawn. The suspect hesitates for a moment, fumbling near the seat, before realizing there's nowhere left to run. He drops to his knees. The chase is over.
In the grass area.
Coming to Fowlerville.
Clear coming to Fowlerville.
36, pit.
Pit. Confirming pit.
Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Turn around, hands up! Hands up! Get on the ground! 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 You got him? Get around! Sit down! Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Roll over!
What began as a reckless highway pursuit could have ended in disaster, but thanks to quick coordination and fast action, no one else was hurt. Thanks for watching. Stay vigilant, friends.